Chapter 8:26. Qian Rinshue's angel's domain had been weakened by the energy barrier, but it was not something that Tang San could resist. No matter what kind of attack they used, they could not cause much damage to Qian Rinshue. On the contrary, every attack from Qian Rinshue gave the 9 of them immense pressure. Wounds gradually appeared on the 9 of them. Bai Qinxiang, who was the weakest, felt as if her whole body had fallen apart after being lightly knocked by Qian Rinshue. She had not recovered yet. As auxiliary-type soul masters, Ning Rongrong, Oscar, and Shen Lingqi could not release any soul skills at all under the effect of Qian Rinshue's angel's domain. It was very difficult for them to help immediately. Oscar was the strongest copy of Tang San, but he was no match for Qian Rinshue. Only Tang San and Zhu Zhuqing could fight a little. The rest of them were like the ones that Possessy could send them crashing into the ring-shaped seabed with a light push. Although it wasn't that exaggerated, as long as he was hit slightly, his entire body would be sent flying by Qian Rinshue's enormous soul power and the special effects of her domain. Furthermore, the soul power in his body would be rapidly purified and melted away. However, they still held on bitterly because they knew that as long as they could hold on, the final victory of this battle would still be on Sea God's island side. Boom! Tang San was sent flying again. The 8 spider spears on his back stabbed into the ground as he tried to stop himself from falling back. Although the golden trident in his hand only weighed 50 kilograms, it felt a little heavy at this moment. Tang San knew that his soul power was almost depleted. Even one of the 8 spider spears on his back was broken. Qian Rinshue is still holding back. Tang San had a clear judgment in his heart. It seems that Qian Rinshue does not really want to kill us. He still wants to know Brother Feng's location. On the other side, Zhu Zhuqing was also sent flying in the air by Qian Rinshue's sword. She barely landed on the ground with wounds all over her body, but in comparison, she was better off. Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun were injured all over. The golden flames on the angelic holy sword were extremely hot, even more terrifying than Fatty's phoenix flames. Even Tang San, who had fire immunity, could not be immune to the damage caused by the golden flames. Qian Rinshue had only used 1 soul skill at the start, and it had crippled most of their fighting strength. 6 soul skill. Angel's Roar. A powerful group spiritual attack. Only Tang San, who had immense spiritual power, wasn't affected by the Angel's Roar. As for the rest, their soul skills and techniques were all interrupted in an instant, and they were all rooted to the ground. Other than that, Qian Rinshue did not use any soul skills. He only used the angelic holy sword and slashed. But every slash seemed to carry 100,000 kilograms of weight. Even Tang San could not withstand more than a few slashes before he spat out blood, and his body felt like it was about to fall apart. Qian Rinshue looked at the 9 people who were not fighting much, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. She was at level 99, and these 9 people were not even at level 90, but they had dragged it out for so long. They were indeed extraordinarily strong. If she was only at level 96 or 97, she would not have been able to defeat all of them in such a short time. But at this moment, a bright light suddenly exploded in midair, and 2 figures quickly separated from each other. Qian Rinshue's expression changed. One of the figures was his grandfather, but he was in an extremely sorry state. Even one of the 6 pairs of wings on his back was broken. His body was covered in blood, but he was full of fighting spirit. However, Qian Rinshue could clearly sense that his grandfather was severely injured. On the other hand, Possessy looked very sorry, and his face was pale, but he did not seem to be injured. Fighting in such a place was still too disadvantageous for the 6-winged angels. If not for the energy barrier, the 1,000 Dao stream would not have ended up like this. On the other side, the 7 titled Douluo from the Martial Soul Hall were also in a sorry state. Each of them had different degrees of injuries. The 7 holy pillars were unscathed, and they were in high spirits. Although they had expended a lot of energy, their injuries were very light. The sea dragon Douluo and the sea spear Douluo were still using their martial soul fusion skills. With their martial soul fusion skills, none of the 7 titled Douluo from the martial soul hall were a match for them. If not for the ghost chrysanthemum Douluo's exorcism and martial soul fusion skills, he would have been dead by now. He would not have been in this situation. However, after the 1,000 Dao stream and Possessi separated, the two groups of people stopped fighting. On one hand, it was because they could not fight anymore. On the other hand, it was because they had achieved their goal. Qian Rinxue sighed in his heart. He looked at Tang San and the others lying on the ground and flew to 1,000 Dao stream's side. Possessi, we haven't seen each other for decades, but you're still stronger than me. 1,000 Dao stream's hair was disheveled, and he looked like a lunatic. However, he still had a faint smile on his face. Possessi said indifferently, since that's the case, do you still want to go against the martial soul hall? If you know what's good for you, you can still leave now. If you don't, I'm sorry, but the Sea God's Island has no choice but to kill you. 1,000 Dao stream was silent after hearing this. Seeing this, the sea dragon Douluo said, Head Consecrator, these people from the martial soul hall will not repent. Since that's the case, let them all sleep on the Sea God's Island forever. His words were full of killing intent. However, at this moment, the energy barrier in the sky suddenly rippled violently, as if there was a huge pressure pressing down on it. Muffled sounds continued to ring out. Possessi's expression changed. She seemed to have thought of something, and her expression turned gloomy. In the next moment, the scepter in her hand glowed with a dazzling light again. All the soul power in her body went through the scepter in her hand and turned into a blue light beam that surged into the special energy barrier in midair. This defensive barrier was set up by the sea god. The power of a soul master could not shake this layer of defensive barrier at all, unless the other party was a god. Once the defensive barrier was broken, their situation would be difficult to predict. The simplest thing was that 1,000 Dao stream and the others had not been dealt with yet. They would not have any advantage, and would be attacked by the martial soul hall's army. The 7 holy pillars seemed to know something. They gathered their soul power and poured it into Possessi to strengthen the energy barrier. However, 1,000 Dao stream and the others did not stop them. Not long after, there was a loud rumble. The entire defensive barrier was broken in an instant. A figure floated in midair, exuding a huge, evil aura. She looked down at Possessi and the others who had been blown away. She was covered with a layer of purplish-black armor that was filled with an evil aura. Her cold face was still snow-white. There were also 12 tentacles on her back that were similar to the 8 spider spears of the Tang San, but they were sharper and more evil. Furthermore, they were not external soul bones, but limbs derived from the martial soul. End of chapter. Chapter 8:27. After the defensive shield was broken, the 12 tentacles quickly disappeared, revealing 6 thin wings that floated quietly in the air. Her expression was very calm, and it seemed to be completely inconsistent with that evil aura, but there was a strange sense of harmony. At this moment, she was holding a huge black scythe that was almost the same size as her in her hand, and it was emitting a cold, evil aura. It was Bibidon. Possessi's face was pale as he looked at the woman. At this moment, everyone's eyes were also focused on her. Even Tang San and the others sat on the ground and looked at Bibidon with shock. She looked like the complete opposite of the Pope back then. But now, she looked even more beautiful. Especially that calm expression and evil temperament. It was extremely contradictory, but it also gave people an invisible attraction. People could not help but want to look at her. It was as if she had become the center of this world. Hand over Wang Feng and this Tang San. Bibidon looked at Possessi, and her calm voice made Possessi feel a chill in his heart. Don't resist. Otherwise, the moment the sun rises tomorrow, the Sea God's Island will no longer exist in this world. Don't try to scare me with the name of the Sea God. If the sea god dares to break the rules and come down, there will naturally be other gods who will come down as well. I'm not a god. I haven't become a god. The meaning of Bibidan's words revealed a very fatal and crucial information. However, it made Possessie's heart even colder. It was indeed impossible for the sea god to break the rules and descend into this world again. Even if he did descend, he would only descend in another form and would not be able to exert much of his strength. However, the woman in front of him, although she had not become a god, she truly possessed divine power. She was only one step away from becoming a god. In other words, she was only one step away from the final assessment. Her strength would naturally surpass his, who had just fought with the 1,000 streams. The most terrifying thing was that the other party had already revealed Possessie's last trump card. He could not use the sea god to threaten the other party. This meant that even if the other party did not completely inherit the god position, she at least had a clear understanding of the god. For a time, the entire place was silent. No one even noticed that there were 5 titled Douluo behind Bibidan. Just Bibidan's aura alone was enough to intimidate everyone present. I know you're prepared. Bibidan looked at Possessie. Sea god Douluo, are you trying to borrow the sea god's strength to fight me? You sensed my aura a long time ago. Or had he been preparing all this time? But how could I let you have your way? All of you who serve the gods can borrow part of the power of the true gods. But once you forcefully borrow this power, you won't be able to activate the final test for the successor of the sea god. This meant that the inheritance of the sea god would be severed forever, unless we nurture the next great consecrator. A cold smile appeared on Bibidan's face. She had learned this from the true lord of the Moro clan in the Luosha secret realm. This was because the true lord of the Moro clan was equivalent to the great reverend of the Possessie. Furthermore, even if you borrow the power of the sea god, you won't be able to defeat me. It's even more impossible for you to defeat the 5 titled Douluo behind me and the 6,000 high-level soul masters of the martial soul hall. Bibidan enunciated every word clearly. Possessie was silent. The 7 saint pillars were also silent. Tang San and the rest were even more silent. Evidently, the 1,000 Dao flow had only come to stall Possessie and deplete her and the 7 saint pillars' strength. Then, Bibidan came to finish things off. However, Possessie didn't expect the Pope of the Martial Soul Hall to appear with such a strong aura. It was as if he had already calculated everything that she had thought of. After a long silence, Possessie slowly said, "Sea God isn't on the island. If I leave Tang San to you, why don't you just destroy the Sea God's island? I can't do what you said. If you want to fight, let's fight." Hearing this, Bibidan glanced at her coldly. Then, he glanced at the 3,000 soul masters gathered below. "Where's Wang Wu?" Bibidan suddenly asked. "Where is he?" A smile suddenly appeared on Possessie's face. "Wang Wu? Do you think he can help you?" Seeing this, Bibidan's expression didn't change. He only said to the 5 titled Douluo behind him, "Kill them." His voice was calm, but it made people's hair stand on end. The 5 titled Douluo walked out and looked at Possessie and the rest. Because they had gathered all their soul power to support the energy defensive barrier, it was directly broken by Bibidan, and they even suffered a backlash from some of their soul power. Whether it was the 7 saint pillars or Possessie, they could be said to be very weak now. Not to mention 5 titled Douluo, even if 1 or 2 of them wanted to kill them, it wouldn't be difficult. Furthermore, among the 5 titled Douluo, 3 were transcendent Douluo, and 2 were ordinary Dalu. They were very strong. Seeing the 5 titled Douluo walk out, everyone couldn't help but feel a little suffocated. However, at this moment, a voice slowly sounded. "I'm here." A clear and cold voice sounded from afar. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless gazes converged on the figure in the distance. It was Wang Wu. "This Wang Wu is very lucky." 1,000 Dao Lu shook his head and said, with Possessie's foresight, it's impossible for him not to see through his identity. Even if he was given the Sea God's second trial, if he threatens Sea God's island, Possessy has 100 ways to kill him if he wants to. How rare! Qian Renshua looked at Wang Wu and snorted. He's indeed very lucky. In midair, Wang Wu stood on his mysterious underworld flying sword and quietly stood in midair. Seeing Wang Wu walk out of Sea God's island unscathed, Bibidon slowly nodded and revealed a smile on his face. After not seeing him for more than 2 years, Wang Wu's aura seemed to be extraordinarily stable. Even Bibidon couldn't sense his exact strength. This surprised Bibidong, but at the same time, he was delighted. Hulaina said that Wang Wu had gone through a lot of hardships to complete the trial on Sea God's island. It was normal for his strength to increase greatly. However, it was different when he actually saw it. Wang Wu, do you know if Wang Feng is on Sea God's island? Bibidon asked. It doesn't matter if you don't know. If you really don't know, then I'll make the entire Sea God's island sink to the bottom of the sea. This way, whether he's there or not, he'll have to die. As for these people, it's their own ability that they can survive. Wang Feng, although Bibidon had changed a lot, his methods were really ruthless. He must have been influenced by some deity position. No. At this moment, Qian Renshua walked forward and said in a deep voice, Pope, do you hate Wang Feng that much? You even didn't hesitate to destroy the entire Sea God's island for him? In these 3 years, the Martial Spirit Alliance has never done such a thing. Moreover, what if we really make the Sea God angry? End of chapter. Chapter 828. Hate? Bibidon frowned and looked at Qian Renshua. Xiao Shui, this isn't hate. It's a threat. He and the other 7 from Shrek pose a serious threat to our Martial Soul Alliance. The only ones left on the continent are the Shrek Academy and a few other sections. Wang Feng's strength and potential might be above mine. He's already grown. If this continues, I can't imagine the consequences. Tang San and the others can't be left alive. Wang Feng must die. Qian Renshua listened to her unwavering tone and knew that he couldn't convince her. Silence. Everyone was silent. At this moment, Wang Feng finally spoke. Your Highness, you really think highly of Wang Feng. You've already said so much. At this point, Wang Feng sighed softly and said, Since that's the case, Your Highness, please kill me. Hearing this, Bibidong was stunned. She looked at Wang Feng and frowned. Why should I kill you? Even if you don't know anything about Wang Feng, I won't blame you. Furthermore, you've done enough on Sea God's island. Bibidong thought that Wang Wu felt that he hadn't found Wang Feng, so he had let her down. Wang Feng, no. Wang Feng shook his head and enunciated each word clearly. What I mean is, I am Wang Feng. After he finished speaking, 7 soul rings flashed on Wang Feng's body. The chaotic green lotus turned into a golden lotus, a red lotus, and a black lotus. Finally, it turned into the god-slaying spear and was held in Wang Feng's hand. Then, 14 pairs of wings appeared on Wang Feng's back. They were the symbol of the dark angel martial soul. One buff after another landed on Wang Feng's body, and with each buff, Wang Feng's aura became even stronger. Finally, the power of the blood patterns was activated. Wang Feng's aura reached its peak. A terrifying aura shot into the sky. When the mask was removed, it was still the handsome and cold face that Bibidong was familiar with. Original Sin's domain. The powerful domain that symbolized Popedif Wang Wu turned into an endless black light that enveloped Wang Feng, making him look like a demon god from ancient times. He exuded the same evil and cold aura, but it was even purer. In an instant, it was as if the entire world had fallen into a deathly silence. Many people stared at the scene with their eyes wide open, especially those from the Martial Spirit Palace. Almost everyone's mind was blank. Even Bibidon's brain seemed to have stopped working and lost the ability to think. It was the same for the 1,000 Dao Flo and Qian Renshua. Even the 7 titled Douluo from the Martial Soul Hall, including Snake Spear, who were more familiar with Wang Wu, opened their mouths slightly, as if they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. Not only them, but also Tang San and the others. Their mouths were wide open as they watched. Especially Ma Hongjun. His mouth was so big that 3 big buns could be stuffed into it. Dai Mubai and Oscar were not much better. On the contrary, the other girls were a little confused, such as Bai Qinxiang and Shen Lingqi, who had never seen Wang Feng before, were really confused at this moment. Isn't this Pope Diff Wang Wu? How did he become the Wang Feng that the 7 monsters always sighed about? What's going on? Ning Rongrong's eyes flashed, and she snorted several times, as if she had been prepared for it. But now that she got confirmation, she was also shocked. Although Zhu Zhuqing appeared to be calm, she was indeed the most excited and happy one among them at this moment. The famous white-clothed Popediff from the Martial Soul Hall was actually Wang Feng. This news shocked everyone present to the extreme. Even Possessi was a little stunned, because she did not know much about the continent. She could only infer that Wang Wu was from the Martial Soul Hall. But she was familiar with Wang Feng, because the 7 monsters had talked about him many times in the past 3 years. But she did not expect it to be the same person. At this moment, in the past few years, the stories were like a slideshow in everyone's mind. Those twists and turns, when they recalled it now, made their scalps numb. Cold sweat broke out on their backs. It was too horrible. The people of the Martial Spirit Palace all looked at Wang Feng with a horrified expression. The second in command of the Martial Soul Hall, the most valued person of the Pope, was the #1 enemy of the Martial Soul Hall? How could this be? Absurd, strange, frightened, shocked, and many other complicated feelings emerged in everyone's mind. You are Wang Feng? Bibidan's voice was a little hoarse, as if she was covered with a layer of shadow. A purplish-black aura slowly encircled her entire body. Even Qian Rinxue, who was beside her, felt her entire body turn cold. She was greatly affected. I am Wang Feng. Wang Feng looked at Bibidan with deep eyes. Since you want to kill me, come on. After saying that, he looked at Possessi. The golden lotus in his hand rotated slightly, and he could only cast a recovery spell on them, who had exhausted their soul power. Possessi came back to his senses, quickly landed on the ground, and walked toward Tang San and the others. At this time, the most important goal was to gather them, the people of the Sea God Island, on the Sea God Mountain. As long as they were on the Sea God Mountain, without Bibidan's participation, no matter how many soul masters there were from the Martial Soul Hall, they could not walk up the Sea God Mountain. Just a single beam of the light of the Sea God was enough to stop almost everyone. If Bibidan was involved, then it would be hard to say. You guys go back to the Sea God Mountain first, Possessi said in a deep voice. It is protected by the light of the Sea God. Without the approval of the Sea God, even a titled Douluo can't climb up. Unless it's this Pope. Only Bibidan had the ability to destroy the Sea God Mountain. Tang San and the others also suddenly came back to their senses. They looked at Wang Feng in the air and were speechless for a moment. Ha 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 ha, at this time, Bibidan let out a laugh. Want to leave? Don't even think about leaving today. Bibidan looked at Wang Feng, and several lights flashed in her eyes. There was confusion, anger, shame, shock, and some pain and helplessness. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He could barely sense Bibidan's feelings. After all, he had been with her for more than a year. It was a pity that he did not succeed in the Rakshasa's secret realm. Otherwise, there would not be such a scene today. Great Consecrator, what are you waiting for? Bibidan squeezed a few words out of her teeth. Kill him. Thousand Dalu nodded in realization, as if he was still immersed in this huge shock. After living for so many years, this could be said to be the most incredible thing he had ever seen. Thousand Dalu was much better than Possessi, who had lost all of his soul power. Although he was seriously injured, his self-healing ability was not weak. At this time, the main force of the Martial Soul Hall had arrived, and there were many healing-type soul masters accompanying them. They could ensure that they could fight for a long time. End of chapter. Chapter 829. Qian Rinxue's heart skipped a beat. Bibidon was one thing, but now his grandfather was also involved. Wouldn't this guy be dead for sure? But he couldn't go now. Did he have to fight with his grandfather? This bastard. Qian Rinxue gritted her teeth. Everything was fine, but you actually imitated me and became a spy. To think that I even asked you to pretend to be the Pope in the white robe. No wonder you acted so well. You're just acting yourself, right? Although he was angry, he was also very anxious at this moment. At this moment, Bibidon let out a shrill cry. A purplish-black light spread out in all directions like the tide of the sea. The boundless domain instantly covered Wang Feng and even shrouded Possessi's group, who were leaving. I said, none of you can escape. Bibidon let out a thunderous roar. Her voice exploded in the void like thunder. The purplish-black aura made her look like a goddess of death. Even her pupils were filled with a purplish-black light. Rakshasa domain? Wang Feng frowned slightly. This domain instantly covered over. Even the original Sin domain couldn't resist it. The difference in soul power was too great. The chaotic green lotus true body in Wang Feng's hand appeared. The huge green lotus with a green light pillar that shot into the sky fixed in this world. Even Bibidon's domain couldn't invade the surroundings of the chaotic green lotus true body. Wang Feng spun in the air. The chaotic green lotus white flag dispersed half of the lotus leaf. However, the green light could only be maintained in a range of 50 meters around Wang Feng. Seeing this, Wang Fengxin was shocked. Bibidon's strength was probably stronger than the deep-sea demon whale. With his current strength, the green lotus flag could only disperse the domain power in a range of 40 meters. Bibidon's domain of a few thousand meters was probably not worth mentioning. I'm afraid that the innate 5 directions domain can only disperse the domain power in a range of a few hundred meters. Bibidon hasn't become a god yet, but she's already so strong? Wang Feng couldn't help but think. However, a mere Rakshasa domain shouldn't be able to stop Possessi's group. At this moment, the 1,000 streams of light attacked him. He also had a sword in his hand, but it was not the angelic holy sword. Instead, it was a secondary sword that was also burning with golden flames. The current strength of 1,000 streams should be above that of Qian Rinxue. After all, the 1,000 streams had been stuck at this level for a very long time. Senior, I don't want to hurt you. I advise you to leave. Above Wang Feng's head was a green lotus that glowed with divine light. He held the god-slaying spear in one hand and a small green flag floating in the other. Brat, I spared your life last time. This time I won't spare you. Qian Dalu laughed out loud. In just a few years, you have already grown to this extent. Come, let me see your strength. As soon as he finished speaking, Qian Daolia's body shone brightly, and the long sword in his hand began to spit out golden flames that could devour people. The red soul ring on his body shone with a dazzling light. Boundless golden light rose from Qian Daolia's eyes, and a terrifying aura rose from his body. 9th Soul Skill, Judgment of the Great Radiant Heavens. Qian Daolu roared and pointed his sword at Wang Feng. An illusory cathedral that was a few hundred meters tall rose from Qian Daolia's scarlet soul ring. After that, it disappeared and appeared above Wang Feng as if it had teleported. It directly suppressed him. Wang Fengxin was stunned. He felt as if his entire body had been imprisoned, and he could not move. When the illusory cathedral landed on him, he felt as if he was being pressed down by a 1,000-meter-tall mountain. This illusory cathedral shone brightly, and there seemed to be 1,000 steps. There were also countless illusory angels holding golden long swords, looking majestic and solemn. At the top there was a cross. When it pressed down, Wang Feng happened to land on this cross. Although it was just an illusory image, Wang Feng felt as if he was really tied up. Clang! As the ancient bell chimed, Wang Feng's mental energy shuddered. Immediately after, he saw Dalu holding a golden longsword and walking towards him. Then, the sword slashed diagonally, as if it was going to cut him in half. Whoosh! Almost instantly, the golden longsword was about to slash towards him. Wang Feng quivered, and the dark angel martial soul in his sea of consciousness let out an angry roar. The wings on his back bloomed with dazzling light, and the blood patterns on his body seemed to be burning. However, he felt as if there were countless threads binding him, and he could not move at all. He could not help but be shocked. What kind of soul skill is this? It can actually disregard my strength and soul power status and bind me? Could this be? Wang Feng looked at the countless golden threads on his body and the illusory cathedral, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. The god-slaying spear disappeared, and the red lotus suddenly appeared. In the next moment, countless karmic fire covered his body. The golden threads were burned the moment they came into contact with the karmic fire. Wang Feng felt his body empty, and the god-slaying spear appeared in his hand again. Spirit severing. Wang Feng looked at Dalu, who had already used his deified soul skill, and could naturally use the first move of the absolute wind lightning spear. This move did not require the true power of heaven and earth. It could be used with the power of lightning contained in the deified soul skill. Its power was much weaker than the second move, Heaven and Earth Tempest. However, Wang Feng was too strong now. With his deified soul skill, soul-devouring blood wings, the power of the blood patterns, and the dark angel martial soul, all his attributes were increased by almost 40 times. In addition, his body had been cleansed by the chaotic divine light, his 800,000-year soul ring, and his 500,000-year invisible enhancement. The power of his spear could be said to be extremely strong. Clang clang! The spear and sword intertwined, and almost instantly, Dalu's sword was sent flying. Immediately after, Dalu's entire body was sent flying by this spear technique that was shrouded in purple and green. When Dalu saw Wang Feng break free from his great radiant heavens of judgment, and even the speed of his sword paused, he was in disbelief. In addition, he had not recovered from the injuries he had suffered from possession, and it was even more impossible for him to receive Wang Feng's spear. If he was in his best condition, Dalu should be able to receive it. However, he could not do so now. After sending Dalu flying, and even vomiting blood, Wang Feng also felt a huge rebound force that made his arm numb. He was a little shocked. These rank 99 exceptional Douluo are not simple. They are already in such a state, but they still have such strength? That soul skill just now was extremely strange. It was not restricted at all. Not only did it bind his body, but it even bound his mind. Wang Feng guessed that the illusory cathedral was probably something similar to the power of faith. The golden threads on his body that he could not break free from should also be the power of faith. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to break free. However, it was different from the resistance of the sea god's trident. This power of faith was used to bind, not resist. Wang Feng tried to burn it with his red lotus karmic fire, and he realized that the power of faith seemed to be unable to withstand the burning of the red lotus karmic fire. In an instant, the golden threads were burned. He took this opportunity to counterattack. End of chapter. Chapter 830. This 1,000 Dao flow is quite something. Wang Feng broke out in cold sweat. The 1,000 Dao flow was concentrated in Wang Feng's sword. The majestic power shocked him even more. No one could break free from this 9th soul skill unless they were a god. When he fought with Possessi earlier, Possessi used the power of the sea god to break free. This kid didn't obtain the power of a god, not even a little bit. How did he break free? Did he burn himself with fire? The power of this spear was almost the same as an attack from him when he was in his best state. What level is he at now? I'm a rank 99, exceptional Douluo. Thousand Dao Flo couldn't help but tremble. The first time he saw this kid, he wasn't even 15 years old. Now, he was 24. How many years has it been? He's just a kid who hasn't inherited a godly position. How can he be so strong? Grandpa, are you okay? Qian Rinxue asked with concern when he saw his grandpa vomiting blood. However, his gaze landed on Wang Feng. Thousand Dao Flo, can't you be more serious? I'm the one who's injured. Qian Rinxue seemed to have realized this too. He quickly turned to look at Thousand Dao Flo. Grandpa, this kid is a little strong. Let her handle him. Thousand Dao Flo didn't answer. He only looked around and frowned. What's wrong with these people? Qian Rinxue suddenly looked at the aquatic soul beasts on Sea God's Island. Tang San, Possessi, and the others were also there. Other than Possessi, everyone else was in a daze. Even Possessi was in a daze. He seemed to be unconscious. Everyone else's eyes had lost their color. It was as if they had lost their souls. Your mother is a genius. Thousand Dao Flo's eyes flashed. She actually used such a method to keep them all here. Qian Rinxue didn't understand. At this moment, the 5 titled Douluo didn't attack Wang Feng. It was very simple. They couldn't beat him. If they went, they would probably be killed instantly. White-robed Popetiff's name shook the world. They were also titled Douluo of the Martial Soul Palace, so they naturally understood Wang Wu's strength. In addition, he had cultivated on the Sea God's Island for more than 2 years. Even the great consecrator, Thousand Daos Lu, had been sent flying with a single spear strike. These 5 titled Douluo quickly attacked Tang San and the others. Because they were in a daze, they were completely unconscious. It was impossible for the Rakshasa domain to have any effect. Wang Feng naturally noticed this as well. He knew that the effect of this Rakshasa domain was nothing more than arousing the evilest and most despicable thoughts in a person's heart, which would then be absorbed by Bibidon into a special divine power. However, Bibidon had yet to become a god, so it could not absorb it at all. It could only be used to stimulate such thoughts. However, it was not to the extent that everyone was stunned, as if they had lost their souls. From this aspect, the Rakshasa domain was similar to the original Sin's domain, but it was much weaker. After pondering for a few seconds, Wang Feng roughly understood. He could not help but be amazed by Bibidon's idea. Bibidon was using the Rakshasa domain to arouse the evilest thoughts in a person's heart. From there, it would lure them to release the evilest thoughts in their hearts and guide their souls into the Rakshasa secret realm. It was important to know that the mysterious god's inheritance space in the Rakshasa secret realm was countless times more dangerous than the Sea God's Island. Once a soul entered, it would die if it was not careful. Most importantly, entering the Rakshasa secret realm was equivalent to being slaughtered by Bibidon. This was because the Moro tribe inside was invincible, just like how Possessi was invincible on the Sea God's Island. In the Rakshasa domain, no titled Douluo could defeat the Moro tribe. Thinking of this, Wang Fengxin broke out in cold sweat again. Back then, Bibidon had shared her evil thoughts with Wang Feng to guide him into the Rakshasa secret realm. He did not expect her to use a similar method here. She used the Rakshasa domain to guide so many souls into the Rakshasa secret realm. Wang Wu. At this moment, Bibidon looked at Wang Feng with an extremely cold gaze. Now, their lives are in my hands. Wang Feng looked at her. As long as I give the order, they will die in the Rakshasa secret realm instantly. Bibidon's hands trembled slightly. It seemed to be caused by excessive anger. You've been to the Rakshasa secret realm before. You should know how dangerous that place is. Their souls have entered there. Without my permission, don't say anything. They won't be able to survive in the Rakshasa secret realm. Wang Feng fell silent. At this moment, Tang San and the rest, as well as Possessi and the 7 holy pillars, were surrounded by an evil aura. Everyone had evil thoughts in their hearts. Everyone had evil thoughts. Wang Feng's body had been tempered by the red lotus karmic fire because of his physique. Even if he had evil thoughts, they would be instantly purified. They were different. Bibidan's move was too powerful. What do you want? Wang Feng asked calmly. I'll give you two choices. Bibidan stared at him. 1. You can continue to be the Pope if Wang Wu. Cut off all your previous relationships and join the Martial Spirit Alliance. I can let bygones be bygones. I can even let some people go. 2. You can defeat me. At the same time, you'll face the situation where all of them are going to die. You'd better think it through. Bibidan looked at Wang Feng. Her fingers trembled slightly. However, she controlled her expression very well. She was extremely calm. After she finished speaking, even her eyes became calmer. Dalu frowned slightly. He did not expect that with Bibidan's temperament, she would actually ask someone who had betrayed her to stay. This was simply inconceivable. Rinxue was also extremely shocked. Was this really the autocratic, cold, and heartless Pope? She actually asked someone who had betrayed her to stay? Grandpa, is she serious? Rinxue whispered. The previous plans of the Martial Spirit Palace were all directed by this bastard. He played the Martial Spirit Palace in the palm of his hand. Even she was played, but she actually asked him to stay? It's different. Dalu muttered. Although Wang Feng is a spy, in fact, he has helped your mother in many ways. Not to mention patrolling the entire continent, subduing the forces, or the soul hunting plan. Because these are nothing to the Martial Spirit Palace. Without anyone, she could have done it herself. But the point is, he once gave your mother a very compatible 100,000-year soul beast. At the same time, Dalu paused. He helped your mother pass the 8th test quickly and perfectly. That's why she's in this situation today. Hearing this, Rinxue fell silent. You're AF * King Spy and you've already done this? No wonder you're her confidant. In other words, perhaps in this world, no one knows your mother better than Wang Wu. Dalu shook his head. That's why she's so sincere in asking him to stay. End of chapter. Chapter 831. Hearing this, Rinxue gritted her teeth. This bastard, in order to infiltrate the enemy and gain her trust, he even gave her 100,000-year soul beast. Do you think 100,000-year soul beast is a cabbage? How despicable! Also, he helped her pass the 8th test. Rinxue knew how difficult the divine test was. Without her grandfather's help in the past 3 years, she wouldn't have been able to pass so many tests. Moreover, it seemed even more difficult for her to inherit the divine position. There's more. Bibidan's tone became calmer. I know about your relationship with Xiao Shui. I've looked into it. You two met when you were 6 years old. When you left the Pope's palace and met the High Priest, it was Xiao Shui who exonerated you and asked the High Priest to let you go, right? According to the Dream God Machine, you saved Xiao Shui twice as Feng Yuxiu. In the Heaven-Do City Palace, you used the identity of White Pope Diff to cover her retreat. You were very close on the way. I know about your relationship. Xiao Shui rushed here to find Wang Feng, not to catch you, but to save you. At this point, Rinxue's face turned red. It was normal for this matter to be found out, but he didn't expect her to hide it so well. I thought she had a special way to contact you, so I didn't expose you. She wanted to use this to find Wang Feng, but since you are Wang Wu now, I promise you. Bibidan glanced at Rinxue and said slowly, on the first condition, I agree to what you did before. Bibidan said it well. She didn't say that she would marry Rinxue to Wang Feng, but only agreed to what they did before. This way, she could avoid Rinxue's disgust. Nonsense. Rinxue blushed and said coldly, there was nothing between me and him. However, although she said that, she looked at Wang Feng with a hint of expectation. Kid, I've given you a chance, let's see if you can grasp it. Rinxue said with a smile. Choose between life and death. Wang Feng was silent. It was a choice again. Why did these women always have to choose? Choosing at the drop of a hat. F*CKU. I don't want to choose. Can't you choose both? Wang Feng asked. I really hate to do multiple choice questions. Bibidon, Qian Rinxue, Thousand Streams. The three of them twitched their mouths. Even the titled Douluo twitched their mouths. As expected of the Popediff Wang Wu. Shameless. Qian Rinxue glared at Wang Feng as if her eyes were about to spit fire. Wang Feng, you're dreaming. Choose both of them? He wanted to continue being the Popediff king, but he didn't want to cut ties with them. He even wanted to Bibidon to let them go. How could there be such a good thing in this world? What's wrong with dreaming? Wang Feng asked. Do I not even have the right to dream? You. Qian Rinxue looked at Wang Feng angrily. She had always been unable to outtalk Wang Feng. He's so shameless. Thousand Streams couldn't help but curse. This brat really wants to provoke Bibidon's anger. No wonder he can attract such a girl. Sigh, if I had been more shameless back then. Thousand Streams' eyes flashed with melancholy. She glanced at Possessi and shook her head. However, at this moment, Bibidong suddenly laughed. Her smile was beautiful. Sure. Bibidon's smile was like a reward. It was a beautiful smile for someone who was about to die. Really? Wang Feng was stunned. Really? Bibidon smiled and nodded. Then, her smile froze. If you can save them, you can defeat me. I'll let you choose both of them. Wang Feng, F*CK. How do I fight? Fight with my head? Wang Feng, I advise you to stop daydreaming. Qian Rinxue said coldly. Hurry up and choose. Don't waste time. Either you die or we die together. Our relationship hasn't reached that level yet, right? Wang Feng looked at Qian Rinxue in surprise. You want to die with me? Qian Rinxue was stunned. Her face darkened and she said coldly. I mean, you want to die with them. Who wants to die with you? Wang Feng smiled and looked at Bibidon. Then I'll try to save them and defeat you. Hearing this, everyone looked at Wang Feng in astonishment. Bibidon frowned. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Bibidon's gaze was like a sharp blade, as if she was going to cut Wang Feng into pieces. Let's wait and see. Bibidon clenched her hands, and her eyes began to become uneasy. Obviously, she didn't believe that Wang Feng could do this at all. No matter which one, he couldn't do it. In the Rakshasa's secret realm, there was no way out. Other than her, the inheritor of the Rakshasa deity, no one could enter the Rakshasa's secret realm as they wished. Moreover, Wang Wu couldn't enter the Rakshasa's secret realm. There was no evil in his heart. It was extremely pure. Otherwise, he wouldn't have attracted Xiao Shui, and if he couldn't enter the Rakshasa's secret realm, it was impossible to get these people out. Moreover, there were so many of them that it was even more impossible for them to come out at once. Bibidon knew that Wang Feng had the original Sin domain, which could absorb the evil and use it to enter the Rakshasa's secret realm. However, not everyone had the evil aura that she had condensed back then and could share it with Wang Feng so that he could enter the Rakshasa's secret realm. That was because she was the inheritor that she could do this. If Wang Feng wanted to enter the Rakshasa's secret realm in this way, it was obviously impossible. Similarly, Wang Feng's original Sin domain couldn't completely absorb the evil thoughts and emotions that he had lured out of these people and make them come out all year round. Because these evil thoughts were produced all the time. Unless the source of the evil in their minds could be eradicated, it was useless to just absorb them. It was impossible to absorb them all. As expected, Bibidon saw Wang Feng walk in front of Tang San and the others and begin to use the original Sin domain to absorb the evil aura that was scattered out of their bodies. However, after absorbing a little, it didn't weaken. Instead, the evil aura on everyone's body became more and more intense. It caused a backlash. The more he absorbed, He even began to tremble. Wang Feng withdrew the original Sin domain and frowned slightly. The evil aura on these people's bodies had been lured out by Bibidan. Unless Bibidan died. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to absorb it all. Then, Wang Feng turned his hand and released the innate 5-element flags. Seeing this, Bibidan's eyes narrowed again. Obviously, Wang Wu had lied to her again. Previously, the flag martial soul had only changed into different abilities, but it was actually different forms. There were a total of 5 flags. Each of the innate 5-element flags had the effect of repelling all evil and being invulnerable. Among them, the green lotus flag had the effect of calming one's heart and could expel the evil in one's heart. The light of the green lotus flag enveloped them. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the evil aura on their bodies quickly dissolved. Everyone calmed down. However, none of them returned from the Luosha secret realm. "It's useless," Bibidan said calmly. "The evil in their hearts is gone, so they will definitely stay in the Luosha secret realm. Don't you know how to leave the Luosha secret realm? Everyone has to cultivate to the point where they can face the evil in their hearts or expel the evil in their hearts. Only then will it be possible to leave. What you expel is the evil aura on their bodies. It's not the evil in their hearts." Bibidan's words made Wang Feng fall silent. Wang Feng put away the 5-element flags and thought for a while. He said slowly, "Let's try this, P.S. 14 chapters first, 6 chapters at night. I'm too sleepy. Please give me a monthly vote." Chapter 832. As soon as Wang Feng finished speaking, the soul power in his body quickly circulated and fused with the huge chaotic green lotus martial soul true body above his head. As he spoke, Wang Feng looked at Bibidan and the others. Actually, at this time, Bibidan could directly make a move. Yes, that's right. Bibidan could completely make a move now. Although the Thousand Dao flow was severely injured and was defeated by his heaven and earth wind thunder, it did not have much combat strength. However, Qian Rinxue still had combat strength. 2 against 1, he had no chance of winning. Death was the only outcome. Not to mention that Bibidan still had 6,000 high-level soul masters behind her. It would be easy for her to plow the Sea God's island to one side. It was even more impossible for Little Three and the others to survive. It could be said that Bibidan wanted to kill any one of them now. It was just a matter of a thought. Pulling all of them into the Rakshasa mystic realm was simply too powerful. Wang Feng did not expect Bibidan to use such a method. It could be said that she had completely grasped the initiative now. The reason Bibidan was able to give him a choice was because she had once said that he was the only person who knew all of her secrets and had helped her a lot. In fact, there was another very important point that Bibidan might not have realized yet. In the 8th trial of the Rakshasa mystic realm, he did not want to help her. Instead, he wanted to cut off her chance of inheriting the deity position. If Bibidan used Wang Feng's identity to revisit the Rakshasa mystic realm, she would definitely discover this key point. In that case, Bibidan would not give him a choice at all. She would directly make a move. Of course, it was also possible that Bibidan had already discovered it but pretended not to know, or she still thought that she was helping her. But no matter what, Bibidan now had the greatest initiative. Although Wang Feng could leave by himself, if he left, Tang San, Zhu Zhuqing, and Ning Rongrong would be captured by Bibidan even if they did not die. Wang Feng also understood that Bibidan gave him a choice because he occupied a certain position in her heart. Perhaps it had nothing to do with feelings, but more to do with the fact that they were close friends. However, the price of becoming her confidant was to sever their relationship. Wang Feng could not do that. What's the use of having a close friend? With Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing around, Xiang he was much more powerful. Therefore, Bibidan's choice was either nothing or both. The first step was to pull all these people out of the Rakshasa mystic realm. Neither the original Sin domain nor the innate 5-element flags worked. They could only absorb and expel the evil in their hearts. The karmic fire of the red lotus might work as well, but once it burned, the evil in their hearts would indeed be burned away. However, they would probably die as well. Back then, Wang Feng had used the red lotus karmic fire to temper his body. It had taken him an unimaginable amount of precious materials and time to complete it. Setting aside the 6 immortal herbs, the myriad spirit ice heart in the myriad elephant valley was even more powerful than the ice fire yin yang well. Only then did Wang Feng successfully complete the refinement. Since there was no other way, Wang Feng only had one last move left. If the last one did not work, Wang Feng could only feign civility and temporarily choose the first option. He would pretend to submit to Bibidan and continue to be the white-clothed Poptif. He would sever their relationship and save the lives of Zhu Zhuqing and the others first. A huge amount of soul power surged into the chaotic green lotus. The green light pillar became more and more dazzling. Bibidan and the others watched with rapt attention. Their hearts were actually trembling slightly. The 3 of them were among the strongest experts in this world. Naturally, they could feel that this mysterious green lotus was nurturing a huge amount of energy. What kind of martial soul was this? At this point, even Bibidan knew that this mysterious green lotus martial soul had mysterious and unfathomable abilities. It could transform into many forms, and each form had unimaginable abilities. Not to mention the others, each of the 5 small flags contained unimaginable abilities. They could remove the enemy's domain and restore their spirit. They could contain 100,000-year soul beasts. They could control the power of the sea water. Even if one of these abilities appeared, it would be very impressive. But there were a total of 5 small flags. Moreover, as powerful as the 5 small flags, there were 5 other different martial soul forms. More than 10 pairs of eyes stared at Wang Feng and the green lotus above his head. At this moment, in the center of the chaotic green lotus, the last lotus seed among the 4 lotus seeds emitted intense light. Wang Feng felt that the soul power in his body was rapidly draining and pouring into the lotus seed. The next moment, countless cracks appeared on the lotus seed and then it bloomed. White. It was an endless white with a hint of green. The pure white lotus petals bloomed in the void, as if purifying the world. Bibidan was startled. He actually felt that part of the divine power in his body was purified by this new white lotus. The anger and evil caused by all kinds of emotions just now also disappeared inexplicably. His eyes became slightly calmer. The Rakshasa god was actually not a good god. After inheriting this god position, not only her body, but also her temperament would undergo a great change because of her identity. The most obvious change was that kind of extremely evil divine power, which would greatly affect the appearance, body shape, and temperament. It turned out that after passing the 8th test, Bibidan got rid of the inner demon and his mental state rose to another level. But after these years of resting on the Rakshasa god's inheritance, the evil in his heart grew more and more. Like the Rakshasa domain, it absorbed the most evil thoughts and emotions of all kinds of creatures as nourishment. How could he not be affected? If he was not careful, his soul would be devoured by those evil thoughts and he would lose himself. There was also the Rakshasa god's inheritance and the various divine skills of the Rakshasa god. Once cultivated and used, countless evil desires would surge out of the body, which required great willpower to control. The more profound and powerful the cultivation, the stronger the impact of this evil desire. Bibidan wanted to find Wang Wu in advance because the other's aura could calm her down a little, so that she could inherit the Rakshasa god position more safely. She could also use the original sin domain to absorb a part of this evil desire. It reduced her pressure a little. So this was also the reason why Bibidan wanted to come to the sea god's island quickly to find Wang Wu and give Wang Wu a choice. Sometimes, Bibidan deeply suspected that if she really became the Rakshasa god, she would probably be controlled by this evil desire. She would do a lot of evil things, causing the situation to become difficult to control. Bibidan did not want this. She wanted to control the Rakshasa god, not be controlled by a god position. Become a slave to the desire of the god position. And now, because of these years of cultivating the Rakshasa god, the evil desire in her body became more and more majestic. In the aura emitted by the white lotus, it was actually slowly disappearing. This was completely different from pure absorption. Absorption was only a temporary solution, but this kind of purification was a permanent solution. It could help her from the root. Thinking of this, Bibidan seemed to understand something. End of chapter. Chapter 833. What is this? Dalu stared straight at the white lotus. The budding lotus petals flickered with a round luster, as if they could purify all the filth and evil in this world. They didn't know. It was impossible for them to know. Wang Feng looked at the white lotus. It was so pure that he couldn't bear to destroy its pure white color. Even the air seemed to have been purified. World-cleansing white lotus was the 8th form of Wang Feng's rank 80 chaotic green lotus. Even if he didn't know its effects, he could guess from its name and aura. It had the effect of clearing one's mind, stabilizing one's primordial spirit, and purifying all things. In this aspect, it was much stronger than the green lotus flag of the innate 5-element flags. The green lotus flag could only calm one's heart and restore one's spirit. It could expel evil and force all evil to retreat. But it didn't have the terrifying effect of purifying all things. Of course, this was a martial soul. Perhaps it wasn't as exaggerated as truly purifying all things. But purifying the evil in one's heart wasn't a problem. Wang Feng shouted softly as he felt the pure aura contained in the white lotus. It actually had a faint feeling of compatibility with his body. Vaguely, Wang Feng even felt the illusion of joy from the white lotus. This made Wang Feng a little stunned. It was a thought, although it was very faint. Martial souls didn't have consciousness. Could it be that my martial souls can become real? Wang Fengxian thought of an unbelievable idea. All along, although the chaotic green lotus was strong, in Wang Feng's imagination, it was only a martial soul and not a real chaotic green lotus. In the form of a martial soul, it formed a primordial treasure in the legends, but it was still a martial soul. Its power was limited. However, if these forms could all become real, then it would be a completely different concept. One had to know that these forms were all formed by relying on his soul power. Without soul power, it was nothing. Thinking of this, Wang Feng felt that this idea was a little ridiculous. Even if he became a god, he couldn't make the chaotic green lotus become real, right? At least, it was impossible in this Douluo world. Moreover, he was still a long way from becoming a god. The appearance of the white lotus and the feeling of compatibility with his body made Wang Feng feel more enlightened. Then, the white lotus slowly appeared in Wang Feng's palm. Wang Feng felt the feeling of being connected to his mind. He couldn't bear to put it down. Perhaps it was because it was compatible with his body, but the white lotus made Wang Feng feel closer to him. Then, Wang Feng activated the white lotus body, causing it to emit a soft light that enveloped Tang San and the others. His soul power was rapidly draining away. Wisps of formless black mist began to spread out from everyone's bodies. At a rate visible to the naked eye, everyone's faces began to relax. Under the purifying effect of the white lotus, the evil in their hearts that had been lured out by the Bibidan slowly disappeared. His mind began to stabilize. Immediately after, the group of people's eyes trembled slightly, and their entire bodies trembled. It was as if he was being pulled back by a great force. The next moment, starting from Tang San, everyone began to open their eyes slowly. Among them, Possessi, who had been struggling, was the first to wake up. To be precise, the evil in her heart was not small. It was just that his mental power was too great, and he also had the power of the sea god. That was why he hadn't been pulled into the Rakshasa's secret realm. Even so, he had been fighting with his own heart. After opening their eyes, everyone was at a loss. Then, they saw Wang Feng's figure. They were in the Rakshasa's secret realm. The moment they entered, their souls trembled. The evil energy in that place was too strong. After entering that place, the evil in one's heart would continue to be magnified, and it would be harder to control it. This was one of the reasons why it was so difficult to leave the Rakshasa's secret realm. It wasn't easy to leave these lands of legacies. In the capital of massacre, one had to win 100 battles and walk through the road to hell. In the Sea God Mountain, one had to pass all kinds of crazy tests. Of course, the Rakshasa's secret realm was also extremely difficult. Most importantly, as soon as their souls entered, they were surrounded by countless Moro tribe members. One had to know that there was a rank 98 Moro true lord among them. In the Rakshasa's secret realm, even Possessi couldn't defeat this Moro true lord. Wang Feng. Everyone looked at Wang Feng. Although they didn't know what was going on, they knew that Wang Feng was the one who pulled them out of that strange place. Besides them, the 7 Saint Pillars had also slowly awakened. Possessi was a little silent. There were still other aquatic soul beasts. Wang Feng's 100 refinements didn't cover a large area, so he couldn't wake them up in batches. He wasn't a generous person, and the White Lotus consumed a lot of soul power. It was already good enough that he could wake them up. Ning Rongrong looked at Wang Feng and was about to rush over. She was still crying out, "Bastard, I knew you were Wang Feng." Ning Rongrong walked over to Wang Feng and hammered his shoulders angrily. However, she was stopped by the others. As soon as Wang Feng's identity was exposed, Bibi Eastern Rakshasa released her domain and instantly pulled them into the Rakshasa domain. They didn't know what Wang Feng and Bibidon were talking about. "Let's leave first." Wang Feng looked at Ning Rongrong. This girl looked dumb, but she was actually smart. He didn't know when she discovered his identity. Now that he thought about it, maybe when Ning Rongrong said to him, "Crawl for me," she was probably testing him. Because this was what he had said to Ning Rongrong when the two of them first met. Later, when he pulled out the golden trident, Ning Rongrong said that if it was pulled out, it would follow his surname. In fact, it was also a little bit of discovery. After that, Wang Feng glanced at Zhu Zhuqing. Then he turned to Bibidon. "You really want to go against me?" Bibidon glanced at Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zhuqing in Tang San's group. When everyone heard this, they were a little confused. "Didn't Wang Feng want to go against you?" "I have no choice." Wang Fengxin sighed and said calmly, "It's a very simple reason. If I give up on them now, I will definitely give up on the Martial Spirit Palace in the future. Will you agree with such a person who can give up and betray his companions at will?" However, Bibidon looked at him mockingly. "Haven't you already betrayed and given up on the Martial Spirit Palace? Betrayed me? Oh no, you are a spy." There was a hint of coldness in his tone. "So, didn't I say that I've already made my choice?" Wang Feng said. Hearing this, Bibidon raised his eyebrows, and anger appeared in his eyes out of nowhere. "Who do you think you are? You want to make your choice? You can pull them out of the Rakshasa's secret realm, so you're capable. Do you really think you can defeat me?" After that, the Rakshasa demon scythe in Bibidon's hand flowed with a purple-black halo, exuding an evil and dizzying aura. When Tang San and the others heard this, they were even more stunned. End of chapter. Chapter 834. Defeat Bibidon? Brother Feng wants to defeat Bibidon? What's going on? Could it be that they have reached an agreement? Hearing this, Tang San looked at Bibidon, felt Bibidon's aura at this time, and clenched his fists. "It's still not enough. It's far from enough. We're too weak. Wang Feng, I'll stay to help you." Ning Rongrong looked at Bibidon in the air and said tenderly, "I'll help you defeat this bad woman." Wang Feng shook his head. His current strength was too strong, and he wanted to strengthen himself on this foundation. Ning Rongrong's 9 treasure star-glazed pagoda would probably exhaust her in a few seconds. You guys leave first and go back to the Sea God Mountain. Possessi walked over and said in a deep voice, "It's no help here." She actually had a way to send Tang San and the others out of the Sea God Mountain. She could summon the great white demon soul shark in the ring-shaped sea, along with the sea outside, so as long as they returned to the Sea God Mountain, they would be safe. However, at this time, Bibidon made a move. "Little girl, you're not big, but your mouth is quite fierce." Bibidon looked at Ning Rongrong, her eyes burning with anger. The next moment, the Rakshasa demon scythe in Bibidon's hand bloomed and drew a giant purple arc in the air. The arc formed a purple light blade, with the aura of tearing the void, and slashed toward Ning Rongrong. The terrifying aura made Possessi's face change dramatically. Even if she was in her best state, she was afraid that she could barely take this blow. This was the power of a true god. Although it was very weak and incomplete, Ning Rongrong was scared, but she was not afraid. In her opinion, Bibidon was a bad woman. Not only her, but Tang San and the others also thought so. Whether it was the Pope's fake intention to attack Tang San and Wang Feng, or the later soul-hunting operation, they were all heinous crimes. Although they didn't succeed, as for Tang San, although Xiao Wu was well preserved, she was indirectly affected by the martial spirit palace and Xiao Wu's mother. They were Bibidon's soul rings. This kind of hatred would never disappear. The purple light blade split apart, and Wang Feng roughly understood Bibidon's strength. Beyond level 99, half a step into the god tier. It was almost impossible for him to defeat her. But if he didn't defeat them, then Wang Feng stepped forward. His black lotus spun, and a translucent pitch-black light shrouded everyone. With Wang Feng's current strength, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Black Lotus, who had the strongest defensive ability, was invincible. In this aspect, it was much easier to use than the Wuji apricot yellow flag of the 5 direction flags. A huge black light shroud covered an area of more than 100 meters. When the purple blade of light struck the pitch-black light barrier, a crack instantly appeared on it. The huge light blade exuded a backflow of evil energy. In just a few seconds, the light shield released by Black Lotus was instantly shattered. However, its power and range were much smaller. Seeing this, Wang Feng stomped his foot and charged forward like a rocket. The soul-slaying spear in his hand condensed, and he directly used the heaven and earth wind and thunder. The moment the greenish-purple spear light came into contact with the purple light blade, there was a burst of violent energy. Halos of different colors colored the void. Wang Feng grunted and retreated quickly. An even smaller light blade struck his body at an even faster speed. A 20-centimeter-long wound appeared. The wound was still corroding his flesh and bones, and it was eroding Wang Feng's spirit. Bibidon's casual strike was already more powerful than the 1000 Dao stream. After being weakened by the Black Lotus light shield, the purple sickle still had a small amount of power left under Wang Feng's heaven and earth wind and thunder. It was evident. Even Possessi and the 1000 Dao stream would not be able to withstand this attack. Wang Feng's golden lotus spun, and golden light enveloped the wound. In just a few seconds it was healed. Under the chaotic green lotus martial soul true body, Wang Feng could use 2 forms at will. It could be said that he was shamelessly strong. Any injury could be healed in an instant. Bibidon frowned slightly and looked at Wang Feng. He already knew what was going on. "Everyone, let's leave." Tang San clenched his fists tightly. He felt that he was weak at this moment. The urge to become stronger in his heart grew stronger. Rationally, he knew that leaving the Sea God's Island now was the best choice. If he stayed here, he would only be a burden to Brother Feng. Ning Rongrong looked at Wang Feng reluctantly. In fact, ever since they came to the Sea God's Island. In the first test, when Wang Wu crazily destroyed them, Ning Rongrong felt that there was something wrong with him. Later on, she had been suspicious. Several times, she pretended to provoke him, but the other party was not angry at all. It was the strangest. What kind of person was the white-clothed Pope Wang Wu? He was such a proud and aloof person. Yet, he actually ignored his verbal provocation. Clearly, something was wrong. At the very least, he would lift her up and beat her up. Now that Wang Feng's identity had been revealed, she could not hug him and talk to him coquettishly. Possessi quickly left with everyone. At this moment, they still felt like they were in a dream. It was as if they had not accepted the situation in front of them. Seeing everyone leave, Wang Feng's expression turned serious. Leave, they are leaving. You are going to die. Bibidon looked at Wang Feng. Countless patterns appeared in his purplish-black pupils, and his 9 soul rings shone in succession. Wang Fengxin said. Bibidon said that he was powerful, but his killing intent was not strong. Were these women all duplicitous? But interestingly, Bibidon did not seem to intend to use his martial soul. Bibidon did not possess his first martial soul, the Death Spider Emperor. It only appeared as a faint shadow. It emitted a sinister aura and its ugly appearance made people's scalp numb. Bibidon did not reveal his second martial soul, but it was also an arachnid martial soul. It was not much better. Without possession, Bibidon only used the Death Spider Emperor's talent domain. Death domain. Talent domains often had extremely powerful effect. Tang San could see it, and as it evolved, it would become stronger and stronger. Although the Death Spider Emperor was ugly, it was indeed a top beast martial soul. It was not inferior to the Blue-Silver Emperor. To be precise, Bibidon's 2 great arachnid martial souls were the top existences among beast martial souls. The purplish-green domains spread out and quickly enveloped the area. Wang Feng immediately sensed the power of the death domain. His soul power and other attributes decreased by at least 30%. His spiritual power also seemed to be shackled by layers of shackles and decreased by 30%. The purplish-green fog floated in the entire domain. The moment the forest below came into contact with the purplish-green fog, it was corroded into tree debris. At the same time, Wang Feng felt that the misty shadow soul skill on his skull seemed to have disappeared. Some soul skills seemed to have been sealed. Seeing this, Wang Fengxin thought, and the innate 5-element flags appeared in his hand. White light extended from all directions. End of chapter. Chapter 835. Although his soul power was greatly suppressed, Wang Feng's innate pentagonal domain could negate the domain of death around him and prevent him from being affected. At this point, the domain of death was also very effective on Bibidon. Bibidon was right not to use her martial soul true body. Once she used it, she would be attacked by his universal divine light. Her abilities would be greatly reduced, and it would be very disadvantageous for her. Bibidon frowned as she unleashed her innate pentagonal domain. She didn't know that Wang Feng had this domain. Even Hu Liena didn't know about it. Wang Feng had unleashed it a few times. When he first awakened this domain in the deep sea, when he fought the deep-sea devil whale, and when he fought Poseidon, Bibidon laughed coldly as she looked at the white space. She wasn't afraid at all. So what if it was a new domain? When the 2 domains came into contact, they formed an independent space. While they cancelled each other out, they also affected each other. Wang Feng wielded his god-slaying spear and attacked Bibidon. He had his chaotic green lotus true body, innate pentagonal domain, dark angel, and the power of his blood patterns. This was Wang Feng's strongest state. Wang Feng didn't have many offensive soul skills, especially close combat soul skills. The extreme dragon falcon kill was affected by the domain of death, and he couldn't teleport over. As he looked at Bibidon, Wang Feng didn't say anything. He unleashed his heavenly thunderstorm again. However, his leg bone shone this time. A speck of star-like light fused into the soul-slaying spear. Suddenly, the soul-slaying spear shone brightly. The heavenly thunderstorm was accompanied by green and purple light as it pierced towards Bibidon. It was extremely quick. The heavenly thunderstorm wasn't a soul skill. However, Wang Feng's right leg bone's star core soul skill could increase his soul power by 100%. It was equivalent to increasing his strength. Wang Feng had never tried using star cores to enhance his self-created soul skill, Absolute Thunderstorm Divine Spear. Wang Feng nodded as he sensed that this spear was much stronger than before. He didn't expect to use it like this. It was a huge loss. However, rumble. Bibidon's purplish-black devil scythe suddenly streaked across a violent arc of light and easily deflected the spear. The violent spear light was directly engulfed by the purplish-black rays of light. With a casual strike, Xiaochen easily broke Wang Feng's full-powered worldly wind lightning. Wang Feng remained silent and continued to attack Bibidon. Boom! Boom! In midair, an intense light erupted. The two figures intertwined in the clouds. Every time their attacks collided, a violent torrent of clouds would erupt. Wang Feng's figure was sent flying again and again by Bibidon. Wang Feng had underestimated Bibidon's strength. Well, it wasn't that he underestimated it, because they had never fought before. Bibidon didn't use any soul skills. Any soul skill could only be used after being possessed by a martial soul. For some reason, Bibidon didn't use any soul skills at all. But even so, with the strong physique given by the two martial souls, the Rakshasa Divine Power, and the Rakshasa Demon Scythe, he could easily resolve any of Wang Feng's attacks. Even when Wang Feng activated the Void Realm, he couldn't escape from Bibidon's spiritual perception. Bibidon's spiritual power was stronger than Possessi's, and not inferior to Wang Feng's. The only difference was that Wang Feng's spiritual power was condensed. But Bibidon's spiritual power didn't seem to be weak either. It was even stronger. Perhaps it was because the other party was half a step into the realm of God. Has his spiritual power condensed into a part of the Godhead? Only those of the same level could cause spiritual damage to Bibidon. Wang Feng didn't know, but any spiritual attack didn't have much effect on Bibidon. The tremor sound couldn't hurt him either. The more they fought, the more damage Wang Feng's body was caused by the Rakshasa Demon Scythe. His body began to be covered with dense bloody marks. Qian Lu and Qian Renxue frowned at the side. Qian Renxue didn't seem to want to watch anymore. He clenched his hands. If this goes on, he will die. Qian Lu replied, "It's not easy to fight with Bibidon for so long." Although Bibidon didn't use his martial spirit. But for Bibidon, the power of that divine weapon is not inferior to his martial spirit. Indeed, in the inheritance of the Rakshasa god, there were many offensive techniques related to the Rakshasa demon scythe. The purple scythe from before was one of them. These techniques were divine skills. Even if Bibidon hadn't completely inherited the godhead, the strength it displayed was not something a soul master could resist. It was just that if he used his martial spirit, Bibidon's attack methods would be more varied and powerful. Boom! Another spear was deflected by Bibidon's demon scythe again. The demon scythe left a deep wound on Wang Feng's body. Bibidon's hand trembled slightly and loosened a little. Looking at Wang Feng, who was sent flying again, it seemed to vent the anger in its heart. The coldness in its voice lessened a little. "Wang Wu, you can't defeat me." Wang Feng stood in the same place. His clothes were ragged, but his face was incomparably calm. Bibidon was almost uninjured. It was just that there were a few more wounds on its arm because of its own god-slaying spear. Even if the injuries couldn't be healed, Bibidon could easily suppress it. "It's indeed impossible." Wang Feng looked at Bibidon with deep eyes. With his current strength, it was too difficult to defeat Bibidon. Bibidon hadn't become a god, but it was definitely in the state of a demigod. Its strength was beyond level 99. It also had a divine weapon. When one's strength reached such a level, It was no longer a matter of some kind of technique or one or two soul skills. Bibidon was now stronger than the deep-sea demon whale. It was even possible for Bibidon to kill the deep-sea demon whale if it wanted to. Both of its martial spirits were full of soul rings. What did that mean? It should be known that Tang San's 8th test was to add soul rings to both martial spirits and cultivate to the level of a titled Doulu. If Wang Feng hadn't cultivated on the Sea God's Island for 2 years and his body's potential hadn't been developed after being cleansed by the chaotic divine light, it would be difficult for him to fight with Bibidon now. Then why are you still struggling? Bibidon looked at Wang Feng calmly. Don't force me to kill you. When it said this, the demon scythe in Bibidon's hand trembled slightly. I still have to struggle after all, Wang Feng smiled. The smile on his face stunned Bibidon. The light of the golden lotus enveloped his body again. Coupled with his powerful self-healing ability, all of his injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the soul power stored in the black lotus flowed into his body continuously. Bibidon didn't know what he wanted to do. It just frowned and watched. In less than 10 seconds, Wang Feng instantly recovered to his peak state. Seeing this, Bibidon's eyes flashed with a strange light. Even she had consumed a lot of soul rings just now. This brat wants to try again? Dalu frowned. Does he have masochistic tendencies? He was suppressed by Bibidon the whole time just now. Even if he recovered now. At this moment, Dalu suddenly saw Wang Feng remove his domain and chaotic green lotus martial spirit true body. The different forms of the martial spirits all disappeared. Wang Feng was the only one who was naked. Although the enhancement on his body was still there, it was really hard to understand. What is he trying to do? He didn't even use the martial spirit palace? Did he give up on himself? In the next moment, Wang Feng opened his left hand and took a deep breath. An ordinary axe martial spirit appeared in his palm. Seeing this scene, countless pairs of eyes looked at it in astonishment. This is his third martial spirit? P.S. There are still 2 more chapters to go. I'm too tired and sleepy. Let's put it on tomorrow. Tomorrow 10. Please count the votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 836. Third Martial Soul? Everyone's mind went blank at this moment. Looking at that simple axe, Pope Diff Wang Wu, 9-1 Kai, Monster Captain Wang Feng. He has so many identities, but he actually has a third martial soul? What is a triplet martial soul? Until now, no one on the continent has a triplet martial soul. Even those with twin martial souls could be counted with one's fingers, and every single one of them was recorded. The difficulty of cultivating twin martial souls was already terrifying enough to make people's hair stand on end. Not to mention triplet martial souls. No wonder his cultivation speed is obviously very exaggerated, but his soul power is only at rank 80. Qian Rinxue muttered, triplet martial souls, although he had never heard of it before. But theoretically speaking, this wasn't impossible. From the perspective of a parent, if one of the parents had twin martial souls, there was a possibility of passing down 3 martial souls to their offspring. However, this probability was too small. Other than that, he had never heard of it before. This brat's talent can be considered unprecedented. Thousand Streams stroked his white beard. A single green lotus can transform into 8 different forms, and he also has a mutated dark angel martial spirit. Speaking of which, this martial spirit should have a very deep relationship with our 6-winged angel clan. However, both of his martial souls are very strong. The dark angel martial soul has a strong suppressive effect on the 6-winged angels of our clan. At this point, Qian Lu stared at the axe martial soul in Wang Feng's hand for a few times. But why does this axe martial soul look so ordinary? When he used 9-1 Kai to register his identity, he used this axe martial soul to register. So it's true. Furthermore, this axe martial soul does not have any soul rings, so it can't be that strong. Even with Qian Lu's knowledge, he could not feel anything special about the axe martial soul in Wang Feng's hand. The other titled Douluo could not see anything special about it. This is a tool martial soul. Popetiff's axe martial soul. Could it be stronger than the number 1 tool martial soul on the continent, the clear sky hammer? The titled Douluo behind Thousand Daos Lu were discussing amongst themselves. However, even the clear sky hammer could not defeat the current His Majesty the Pope. Triplet martial spirit. Bibidon was silent for a moment. He looked at Wang Feng with a cold smile. The cultivation of the triplet martial spirit is more difficult than the twin martial spirits. Other than your azure lotus martial soul, your angel-type martial soul doesn't even have a soul ring. This martial soul isn't attached to it either. Not to mention this axe martial soul. You also don't have a single soul ring. Do you think you can defeat me with this? Bibidon also saw the key point. This axe didn't have a single soul ring. Without a soul ring, even the clear sky hammer wouldn't be able to unleash its full potential. What was the use of having triplet martial spirits? Furthermore, if he used this axe martial spirit, his azure lotus martial spirit wouldn't be able to be used. On the contrary, his combat strength should be even lower. In fact, it didn't even have a single soul skill. Even if it manifested, how powerful could it be? We have to give it a try. After Wang Feng finished speaking, the soul power in his body surged towards the Pangu axe. Sai, look, if you don't manifest, people will think you're an ordinary axe. The moment the soul power surged into the Pangu axe martial soul, an intense beam of light suddenly lit up from the Pangu axe. In an instant, it covered Wang Feng's entire body and shot into the sky. An even more terrifying power spread from Wang Feng's left palm to his upper body. The clothes on his upper body were directly shattered into pieces. The effect of the Pangu axe's tearing clothes was still so outstanding. Wang Feng felt ashamed. The scarlet blood patterns were like streams of lava flowing all over Wang Feng's body. It made Wang Feng look like a demon from hell. It was completely different from before. The intense beam of light emitted by the Pangu axe seemed to have injected a mysterious power into Wang Feng, causing his body to seem to have increased in size. The increasingly majestic energy condensed into a beam of light that shot into the sky and shook the heavens. In just a moment, the Pangu axe gradually turned into a solid axe under the influx of soul power. The simple and unadorned axe blade emitted a terrifying aura that caused the heavens to change color. The ancient axe body seemed to have been carved from ancient trees during the Chaos Era. It had a long and heavy sense of history. When the axe landed in Wang Feng's hands and he held the Pangu axe again, bright light shone from Wang Feng's body. The beam of light that shot into the sky caused the heavens and earth to change color. At this moment, Wang Feng looked more like an ancient giant from the ancient era. The blood patterns on his body seemed to have become a foil. The 14 pairs of wings on his back also seemed dim under the beam of light. This change in an instant. It shocked everyone once again. It was too strange and too magical. A moment ago, it was still an ordinary axe. The moment it took shape, it emitted such a terrifying energy fluctuation. No one had ever seen such a magical martial soul. Even the most experienced and knowledgeable soul master in the world of soul masters could not explain this situation. If a grandmaster was here, he could only watch in a daze. Moreover, it was an extremely sharp energy fluctuation that seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. That beam of light caused the martial souls of everyone present to tremble. The huge shock brought about by the reversal of the two extremes caused everyone, except for Bibidon, to fall into a daze. Wang Feng's ultimate trump card, which had been hidden for more than 10 years, finally revealed a trace of its sharpness to the world at this moment. In terms of trump cards, the Pangu axe could be considered the number one. After that, only the meteoric tear and the system were left. The current Pangu axe was not like the one Wang Feng used in the past. Although it could not be said to be perfect, Wang Feng was still very familiar with the Pangu axe. He was also familiar with the enormous power that the Pangu axe carried. Wang Feng was clear that if he wanted to defeat Bibidon, perhaps only the Pangu axe had a slight chance. Holding the Pangu axe in his hand, there was no trace of residual power in his body. The beam of light, which seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and the earth, made this part of the sky become much darker. When this beam of light shot straight into the sky, the people of the martial spirit palace were not the only ones who were shocked. In the distant deep sea, there were low and angry roars. That was the roar of the recuperating deep sea demon whale. He sensed the aura that made him feel fear for the first time in his life. It was that human again. He was stirring up trouble. At the same time, Tang San and the others who had retreated to the circular coast. They also looked into the distance with a shocked face. They were not unfamiliar with the beam of light that shot into the sky. Possessi was also familiar with it. This beam of light, it was also very familiar, it's him. It's that peerless expert. The 9 people immediately looked at the beam of light in the distance in horror. Could it be Brother Feng? Tang San murmured. The one who saved us in the demon whale sea that day was Brother Feng? But what the hell is that? They were now far away from the battlefield, and could not see the specific situation clearly. But this beam of light could prove that the peerless expert who saved them in the demon whale sea that day had appeared. And the position where he appeared could only be Wang Feng. This Wang Wu, Possessi was shocked and looked into the distance strangely. She thought that the peerless beam of light should be a nameless peerless Douluo who was almost the same as her. She even asked Wang Wu before. However, when he thought about it, he realized that all those words were actually praising himself. End of this chapter. Chapter 837. He's really naughty. Possessi felt a little funny, but she was more shocked because she thought about it. This Wang Feng was about the same age as Tang San and the others, only in his early 20s, but he already had such powerful strength. How young was he? Senior, what exactly is this light pillar? The group looked at Possessi. Possessi pondered for a moment and said, "It might be a martial soul or a special soul skill. I'm not too sure. But it symbolizes a power that can destroy heaven and earth." This was not nonsense. Possessi could indeed feel the power contained in this light pillar. Her perception was much stronger than these people. Can he beat that bad woman? Ning Rongrong said nervously. Possessi was silent for a moment. In fact, she knew Bibidon's strength very well. She was no longer someone a soul master could defeat. Even she couldn't defeat her on the sea god's island. She was infinitely close to becoming a god. So the other party was half a step into the realm of gods. Seeing Possessi remain silent, everyone became nervous again. Could it be that there was not much hope for such a powerful force? All right, you don't have to worry too much. That child should have the means to escape. Possessi looked into the distance with a strange smile on her face. He never does things that he's not confident in. Since he used this kind of power, he naturally has his own thoughts. Don't worry, he won't die. I have a feeling that even if you all die, he might still be alive. Everyone. So now you'd better leave this place as soon as possible. Possessi's feeling was not wrong. Wang Feng, who held the Pangu axe, did not have the enhancement of the soul-devouring blood wings, but he had the power of the Pangu axe. This was the power of the Pangu axe itself. Wang Wu, you're really giving me more and more surprises. Bibidon stared at the center of the light pillar, at the man who was more like a god than her. No, Bibidon even had the illusion that the gods in the universe could not be compared to her, although she had never seen a god. Of course, this was talking about momentum, not strength. Don't worry, there's more. I just don't know if you can handle it. Wang Feng took a deep breath and opened the void mirror again. His entire body had reached another extreme. His figure moved, and the void trembled. Beneath Wang Feng's foot, the ocean wave forest exploded into a huge hole in the void. An explosive aura reverberated through the clouds, and an invisible shockwave exploded out the moment Wang Feng moved. In the blink of an eye, Wang Feng's axe chopped down on Bibidon. The axe seemed to be separated by an infinite distance, but in the blink of an eye, it chopped down on Bibidon. A faint sense of danger welled up in his heart. Bibidon was slightly shocked. Even Wang Feng's attack just now did not make her feel any sense of danger. But now there was. Bibidon did not dare to underestimate this axe. With a soft whistle, the purplish-black aura in Bibidon's body crazily gushed out from her body and poured into the devil scythe, causing it to emit a violent purplish-black halo. Holding the devil scythe, Bibidon faced the axe head-on. A purple halo burst out from the devil scythe. Boom! In an instant, the moment the devil scythe touched the Pangu axe, it began to tremble. This trembling was transmitted to Bibidon, causing her to be overwhelmed with shock. The devil scythe was a divine tool. At this moment, even a divine tool was afraid. How was this possible? This was a divine tool, not a tool martial spirit. Even if the clear sky hammer was in front of it, it was impossible for a divine tool to have the slightest fear. Even a divine tool of the same level could not do this. Under the fear, a sonorous sound resounded through the sky. An invisible shockwave, from the point of contact, shook the void to an endless distance. Bibidon's figure fell rapidly. The strength of this axe was so great that even she could not withstand it. It also contained an extremely terrifying aura that could tear the sky apart, as if it could tear the universe apart. Boom! As Bibidon's figure fell, a huge pit that was a few hundred meters deep was formed in the sea below. Countless seawater, sand, and mud shot out in all directions, as if a dazzling flower had bloomed in the sea. Beside her, Dalu, Qianrenxue, and the other titled Douluo's expressions changed drastically, and they quickly retreated in all directions. Under the collision of such a huge amount of energy, even a titled Douluo would not be able to remain unharmed under the aftershock of the axe and the scythe. Is this the strength of a god rank? Qianrenxue muttered. No, this is only the strength of a demigod. It is only beyond level 99, and has not reached the strength of a level 100 true god. Dalu frowned and said, Your mother is stronger than me, but she has the Rakshasa demon scythe, and can unleash even greater strength. You are weaker than your mother because you have just passed the 8th test, and you can't fully control your own strength, and you only have one martial soul. There is a huge difference between 2 martial souls inheriting the deity position and 1 martial soul inheriting the deity position. The Rakshasa god is not stronger than the angel god, only the inheritor is stronger. Qianrenxue nodded silently. Then Wang Feng, if he inherits the deity position? Qianrenxue suddenly asked. Dalu frowned and thought for a long time, but he did not answer. God was another realm, and Dalu was not clear about it, so he naturally would not speculate. But generally speaking, gods would choose their inheritors. Wang Feng's talent and strength were so outstanding that if there was a god, he would definitely be favored. But he did not have the aura of a god. On the contrary, Tang San just now had a very strong aura and fluctuation of a god. Seeing that his grandfather did not answer, Qianrenxue did not ask any more questions. At this moment they all retreated. Another long howl was heard, and a figure was suddenly shaken out from the 2 exploding halos. It was Bibidon. With the support of Wang Feng's current strength, the power that the Pangu axe could unleash had reached an extremely terrifying level. On the surface of the sea, under this axe, even the aftermath had cut open a monstrous water mark hundreds of meters long. The seawater on both sides rose like a waterfall and flowed crazily. Seeing Bibidon being shaken away, Wang Feng did not hesitate and chopped directly at Bibidon with his axe again. Clang! An ear-piercing sound, along with the sound of shaking and cracking, rang out again from the contact between the two. This time it was two figures that exploded. Wherever the axe light went, there was nothing it could not chop. Under the light beam, Wang Feng seemed to have transformed into an ancient god that opened up the void. Every axe strike unleashed a power that could shake the heavens and split the sea. The sea was overturned, and countless seawater churned in this sea area, rolling up high and then falling down. But all of this could only become the background of the battle between the two. Bibidon let out a long howl, and 9 soul rings lit up on his body again, 8 black and 1 red. It was Bibidon's second martial soul, the soul-devouring Spider Emperor. Finally, under the pressure of the Pangu axe, Bibidon had no choice but to use an even stronger strength. Wang Wu! Bibidon's cold voice was accompanied by a trembling anger, and his face even flushed red. This was a huge emerald-green Spider Emperor. Its entire body was covered with emerald-green patterns, and there were 2 pairs of eyes on its forehead and 6 spider legs. After being possessed by the martial soul, 6 emerald-green spider spears appeared on Bibidon's back. Emerald-green net-like patterns also appeared on its forehead, and its entire body was covered with a layer of emerald-green light. End of this chapter. Chapter 838. Her figure changed slightly. She didn't look as ravishing as before, but she still had a demonic sense of beauty. However, this was only a martial soul possession, and not a martial soul true body. Her soul rings lit up, and the demonic sickle's aura became even stronger. Wang Feng didn't say anything, and swung his axe at Bibidon again. The Pangu axe drained a lot of energy. The stronger he was, the stronger the Pangu axe was, and the more energy he consumed. Fortunately, Wang Feng was now rank 80, and his soul power was sufficient. Furthermore, Wang Feng wasn't afraid of any of Bibidon's soul skills. Just like how Wang Feng didn't use any soul skills, he didn't even use any soul skills from his soul bones. This was because Wang Feng knew that any soul bone's soul skills couldn't compare to the strength of the Pangu axe. They probably wouldn't be effective against Bibidon either. Unless it was an even stronger 8th, 9th soul skill, but Wang Feng didn't have one right now. Bibidon was the same. After her martial soul possession, she borrowed her martial soul's strength to strengthen her demonic sickle. She didn't want to use her martial soul true body. If she didn't use her martial soul true body, she wouldn't be able to unleash the full strength of her 8th, 9th soul skill. The two of them clashed once again. Wang Feng was expressionless as he swung his axe at Bibidon again and again. Even Bibidon felt as if her entire body was falling apart every time she was struck by an axe. Furthermore, the strength of every strike was gradually increasing. This was because Wang Feng had become much stronger since the last time he used the Pangu axe. Furthermore, Wang Feng didn't use the Pangu axe often. This was why he allowed the Pangu axe to adapt to his increasing strength when he used it this time. This was why every strike was gradually increasing in strength. Boom! The axe struck the demonic sickle once again. The Rakshasa demonic sickle trembled intensely, and Bibidon roared furiously. Her first soul ring lit up, and her 6th soul ring lit up. The 6 spider spears on her back intersected to form a jade-green Yao-shaped light blade towards Wang Feng. However, this light blade instantly disappeared when it landed on the pillar of light on Wang Feng's body. Bibidon was slightly stunned when she saw this. Her soul skills were ineffective? Evidently, the beam of light on Wang Feng's body was not an ordinary beam of light. Perhaps it was merely a decoration. How could the special effects of Pangu's axe be just for show? It could be said that most energy attacks were ineffective against Wang Feng. If he wanted to hurt Wang Feng, he would have to rely on his strength to crush Wang Feng. Or he could use his 8th and ninth soul skills or special inherited divine skills. The injuries caused by Wang Feng using the Pangu axe were mostly caused by the backlash of the Pangu axe. The power of each axe strike was not only borne by the enemy, but also by Wang Feng himself. The first time he used it, his entire body was shattered. Although Wang Feng had grown stronger, the Pangu axe was also growing stronger. It would still cause damage to Wang Feng. It was just that the damage was much smaller. In fact, the purplish-black aura on Bibidan's body made him immune to most soul skills. This was the difference between a human and a god. It was too difficult to use a soul skill to defeat his opponent. Only someone of the same rank could use a soul skill to injure the other party. The two of them separated again, and countless clouds of smoke exploded in the air again. Cracks started to appear on Wang Feng's skin, and countless hair-like wounds seeped out. His entire body was bathed in the pillar of light and steam was rising. He did not know how many times he had swung his axe. The surrounding sea seemed to have been overturned by the two of them. A third of the sea god's island was submerged. Boundless tsunamis fell like a storm, piercing the sea and sea god's island. Fortunately, there was no damage inland. The ships of the Martial Spirit Hall had already been pushed away. Some of the ships were even lifted. The soul masters inside used all kinds of flying-type soul skills to escape in fear. The soul masters that they chose to go out to sea all had a certain level of flying ability. From this, it could be seen that the Martial Spirit Hall was well prepared. Wang Feng's breath was scorching hot, and his entire body was red. The burden of Pangu's axe was too great. However, only this kind of strength could allow Wang Feng to fight Bibidan without being suppressed. A very important reason was that Bibidan's Rakshasa demon scythe was suppressed by Pangu's axe. This made it difficult for Bibidan to unleash the full strength of the Rakshasa demon scythe. This was why Wang Feng was able to fight Bibidan to a draw. In the distance, the purplish-black aura around Bibidan's body was getting thicker. The boiling soul power in his body was also being depleted by more than half. Wang Wu, let me ask you one last time. Bibidan took a deep breath. His voice was not as cold as before, and he was very calm. With 2 martial souls and a soul power foundation that surpassed rank 99, Bibidan's current state was much better than Wang Feng's. There's no need to ask. I've already made my choice. Wang Feng shook his head. If I can't defeat you today, then you can kill me. Even though he said that, Wang Feng was still calculating in his heart. Tang San, Zhu Zhuqing, and the others should have already left the Divine Sea Island. If they left, then Sea God's Island would no longer be under Wang Feng's protection. Wang Feng could also find an opportunity to leave. It would be difficult for him to defeat Bibidan with Pangu's axe. If he couldn't win, he could run. It wasn't embarrassing to fight Bibidan to a draw. Even if he lost, he would have another chance in the future. Furthermore, this place was the Sea God's territory. Although Bibidan said that he wanted to destroy Sea God's Island, he wouldn't really do that. If he really cut off the Sea God's inheritance, the Sea God might even go down to the lower realm to kill him. He only said that to intimidate Possessi and Tang San. He wanted to raise the morale of his people and establish his authority. Wang Feng knew Bibidan very well. A leader who didn't know how to boast and fool his subordinates wasn't a good pope. Wang Feng didn't know how many people he had fooled, so he was very familiar with this. Hearing that, Bibidan's face calmed down. The next moment, the Rakshasa demon scythe in her hand suddenly burned with flames. The purple-black flames represented the most evil and evil aura. As if they were nourishment, the Rakshasa demon scythe emitted a dazzling light. This was the Rakshasa god's inherited divine skill, the evil flame demon scythe. It stimulated the evil aura in the body and absorbed all kinds of evil thoughts into the divine artifact, so that it could exert a powerful force. Of course, Bibidan hadn't become a true god yet. Using this move would cause a lot of damage to her body. But at this moment, she only wanted to defeat the stubborn man in front of her and capture him. Wang Fengxin was stunned. He had crossed so many levels. At this moment, he also felt that Bibidan's attack was not simple. Maybe it would be gone. Wang Feng activated the remaining soul power in his body. He could only use all his strength to block this move with Panga's axe. End of chapter. Chapter 839. Both of them suddenly disappeared from their original positions. Like two comets colliding, they blasted towards each other. Qian Rinxue, who was watching from afar, suddenly became nervous. She knew that this attack would determine the winner. From an objective point of view, Qian Rinxue believed that Wang Feng would definitely lose. There was no chance of victory. It was already a dreamlike situation for Wang Feng to fight to a draw with Bibidan with a strange axe martial soul that didn't have any soul rings. However, the difference in foundation was too great. Bibidan's soul power was far from what Wang Feng could compare with. Moreover, Bibidan's evil flame devil scythe was several times stronger than before. It had already exceeded Wang Feng's limit. In fact, Wang Feng was also aware of this. However, at this moment, when Wang Feng swung his axe, the cracks on his body suddenly burst out with blood. Countless streams of blood converged into the Pangu axe in his hand like rivers returning to the sea. In an instant, the light pillar on Wang Feng's body suddenly doubled in size. The Pangu axe erupted with even more terrifying flames. This sudden outburst caused the spectators to be somewhat stunned. Wang Feng was also stunned. However, when he felt the blood flowing out of his body, he somewhat understood. At this moment, he was burning his own blood essence to transform it into energy, increasing the strength of the Pangu axe's attack by another level. To put it simply, violent blood attack. However, this consumption was extremely terrifying because it was Wang Feng's blood essence that was being burned. How precious was Wang Feng's blood essence? It was simply a great tonic for those soul beasts. It was very fragrant. However, as the blood flowed out crazily, it merged into the Pangu axe. Wang Feng actually felt that he couldn't control it. This wasn't good. Boom. In the next moment, the Pangu axe and the evil flame devil scythe clashed again. The terrifying power seemed to distort the scene around the two of them. Both of their bodies shook at the same time. Wang Feng was the first to spit out blood. He felt that his body was being crushed by a great force. Fortunately, the heart meteoric tear slowly released traces of energy to repair his body. However, his blood flowed into the Pangu axe continuously. The power was increasing crazily, but Wang Feng felt that he was getting weaker and weaker. He couldn't help but be shocked. Pangu's axe was truly a double-edged sword. If one were to use it recklessly due to insufficient strength, the one who would die would be him. With this support, the Pangu axe directly suppressed the evil flame devil scythe in Bibidan's hand, chopping towards Bibidan inch by inch. Bibidan was also stunned. He didn't expect Wang Feng to be able to unleash such terrifying power at this moment. What the hell is this? If she had known this would happen, she would have used her martial soul true body. However, Bibidan could only circulate the soul force in his body with all his might as the two tyrannical forces intertwined. He didn't dare to do anything else. Both of them were extremely nervous at this moment. Wang Feng stared at Bibidan, who was right in front of him, and discovered that Bibidan's face was filled with an extremely demonic coldness. Other than anger, there was also shock in his eyes. At this moment, looking from afar, Wang Feng was like a giant as his axe chopped down on the evil flame devil scythe in Bibidan's hand with the force of splitting mountains. The small amount of energy that flowed out formed a violent air current around the two of them, just like a tornado. The people in the distance were terrified when they saw this. If they stepped into that violent air current, they would probably be crushed into pieces. Wang Feng, seems like he's going to win? Qian Rinxue looked at the scene in the distance in disbelief. They had retreated at least a few thousand meters. However, they could still see the situation in front of them clearly. Wang Feng's axe actually gained the upper hand? And it was slowly falling towards Bibidan's body. How is this possible? Qian Rinxue was also very puzzled, because this was too strange. However, he vaguely understood something when he looked at Wang Feng, whose body was covered with blood runes. It could only be said that it was amazing. This last attack was incredible. At this moment, in the ring-shaped sea, Tang San and the others who were on top of the great white demon soul shark yesterday were about to leave. At this moment, the light pillar in the distance suddenly burst out with an even more intense light, which startled them. Possessi was also slightly startled. She had been watching the light pillar since it started. Through the changes in the light pillar, even if she couldn't see it clearly, she could still understand it. At this moment, the light pillar suddenly became stronger. Thinking of this, Possessi suddenly rose into the air. She, who had recovered some of her soul power, flew into the air and looked into the distance. Then, she sucked in a breath of cold air. He actually won? Possessi's eyes emitted a blue light, which allowed her to see the scene of the two fighting thousands of meters away. The two different auras were dense, making the sky look chaotic. Ordinary soul masters couldn't see it clearly, but she could see it clearly. Wang Feng had the upper hand. At the same time, Possessi also saw the source of the light. It was vaguely an axe. It was a mysterious and profound axe. How is this possible? How could Wang Feng defeat Bibidan? Possessi found it hard to believe. How could a human defeat a god? Even if Bibidan was only at the demigod stage and not a true god. But there was also a natural chasm between them. Wang Feng, who was at rank 80, was already so strong? Wang Feng, who was at rank 79, was barely suppressed by her in the Sea God Mountain. With the strength of rank 80, even in the Sea God Mountain, she was no match for him at all. But Possessi knew the key to this, the axe. That axe gave Wang Feng a combat power that surpassed the limits of a soul master. Possessi glanced down at Tang San and the others who had gradually disappeared into the sea and remained silent. Her heart was still in endless shock. However, at this moment, only Wang Feng knew that he was about to die. The stronger the Pangu axe was now, the more serious the loss of blood essence in his body was. Even if he defeated Bibidan, he would definitely die in his body. Even the meteoric tear would not be able to save him from the damage caused by burning his blood essence. Seeing the Pangu axe chopping towards her inch by inch, Bibidan's expression changed drastically. She only felt a great force that she could not resist. The evil flame demon scythe was swallowed by the light beam. There was even a faint aura of death emitting from the axe. Bibidan was shocked and angry in her heart. He wants to kill me? Staring at Wang Feng, whose eyes were bloodshot and whose blood was flowing crazily, Bibidan roughly knew that Wang Feng must be using some special ability to burn the blood in his body to activate the great power of the axe. If this goes on, he might die. But why did he do this? He wants to kill me even if he dies? Bibidan seemed to understand and couldn't help but twitch. Her heart gradually turned cold, and the purple-black aura around her became stronger. Killing intent leaped out from her eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 840. Why? Bibidan looked at Wang Feng, her eyes were also burning with flames. Then let's die together. Bibidan laughed. She did not know that Wang Feng's current situation was not something he could control. The blood essence in his body had already flowed into Pangu axe. This violent blood attack was like a flood breaking through a dam. The blood essence in his body was completely out of control. Bibidan's eyes were filled with 30% determination, 30% pain, 30% memories, and finally, anger. She looked at Pangu axe slowly chopping down on her body. Her eyes were filled with purplish black light. Luosha Death Ray. This was the Luosha inheritance she had inherited. It was not a powerful move, but at this moment it was enough to take her opponent's life. Her eyes were filled with purplish-black light, however. At this moment Wang Feng suddenly roared. The mental power in his sea of consciousness was surging like an ocean, crazily condensing. Wang Feng did not want to kill Bibidon, and he did not want to die. This violent blood attack was unintentionally activated, making it hard for Wang Feng to control. At this moment, his consciousness was completely focused on how to stop this violent blood attack. The blood in his body was being crazily absorbed by Penguak. Subconsciously, Wang Feng used the front secret word, driving his huge mental power, trying to control his state. Under the high concentration of his consciousness, under the will of not wanting to die, his mental power, which had reached a bottleneck, suddenly surged with monstrous waves. The originally boundless sea of consciousness was actually shrinking rapidly. It was incomparably strange. However, Wang Feng knew that this was the sign of his mental power being compressed. When it was compressed to a certain extent, it would turn from liquid to solid. The capacity of his mental power seemed to be shrinking, but Wang Feng knew that his mental power was increasing. Sure enough, when this sea of consciousness was compressed into a small pond, Wang Feng felt that he could control the situation in his body. The blood in his eyes gradually recovered. Only then did he realize the situation in front of him. Pangu Axe was about to chop Bibidon's neck. The evil flame devil scythe in Bibidon's hand seemed to have been shaken away. Seeing this, Wang Feng quivered and quickly controlled the blood essence in his body. After losing his blood essence, Pangu Axe's aura suddenly weakened. Wang Feng felt his entire body become extremely weak. It was as if he had been hollowed out. He felt that he was only a few steps away from death. The beam of light on Wang Feng's body quickly disappeared, and so did the Panguak. Wang Feng retreated slightly, and was about to leave. However, right at this moment, a purplish-black light burst out from Bibidon's eyes and blasted into Wang Feng's heart. Rumble! This Bibidon's death ray, which was filled with determination and anger, instantly pierced through the center of Wang Feng's chest, who was currently extremely weak and unable to dodge. A huge hole was blasted open. At this time, Bibidon's eyes suddenly woke up. She touched the bloodstain on her neck and looked at Wang Feng blankly. Why did you let go? Wang Feng was also stunned. When he saw the purplish-black light shooting out of Bibidon's eyes, he realized that something was wrong. He was afraid that Bibidon thought that he wanted to kill her just now. She was so angry and desperate that she wanted to die together with him. But it was too late. Wang Feng! A sharp cry came from afar. Not only was Wang Feng's chest pierced by the death ray, but his entire body was also blasted thousands of meters away. His entire body was enveloped by the aura of the death ray, as if he was being devoured. Bibidon was stunned. Looking at Wang Feng's figure, she seemed to have turned into a statue. The anger in his heart instantly disappeared without a trace. If he had held on for a few more seconds, I wouldn't have been able to. Why did she suddenly stop? Heaven and earth fell into an incomparable silence. Why did you kill him? Qian Rinxue rushed in front of Bibidon and looked at Bibidon furiously. Are you so cruel? If he really wanted to go against you, he wouldn't have admitted his identity just now. If I were him, if I really wanted to go against you, I would have ignored everything when I appeared just now. When you guys were fighting, I would have used that axe to attack you. You trusted him so much that you wouldn't be too wary of him. After you entered the Sea God's Island and fought with those Sea Soul Masters, he only needed to find an opportunity to attack you from behind. Even if he couldn't do it, he would still be able to severely injure you. With the strength he displayed just now, how could you escape? He didn't do that. He didn't want to go against you at all. He didn't want to hurt us either. Qian Rinxue looked at Bibidon with tears in her eyes. After he became a spy, Did he do anything to betray the martial spirit palace? He didn't even kill any of your subordinates, those titled Doulu. When you were in the 8th trial, if he wanted to kill you and destroy your godly position, wouldn't it be a piece of cake? But instead, he helped you. But now you are so ruthless. Hearing Qian Rinshua's angry and desperate questioning, Luo Binghe smiled. Bibidon opened his mouth but remained silent. In any case, he did help him at that time. Say something. Qian Rinshua looked at Bibidon. The hatred that had disappeared in her eyes began to reappear. Bibidon didn't answer, just looked into the distance. The Rakshasa's death ray pierced through Wang Feng's heart. It was impossible for him to survive. This was different from the last time in the Pope's palace. This time, she saw it with her own eyes. With her strength, what she used was the Rakshasa god's divine skill. Although it was incomplete, she could kill Wang Feng 2 or 3 times at that time. The death aura contained in the death ray could even corrode the weak Wang Feng to nothing, devouring all the life aura. Bibidon clenched his hands, expressionless. Seeing that Bibidon didn't speak, Qian Rinshua didn't care anymore. Instead, she quickly flew in the direction of Wang Feng. Qian Rinshua walked over and said after a moment of silence, Wang Feng is dead. Our goal this time can be considered as achieved. As for Tang San and the others. Hearing this, Bibidon's body trembled. She waved her hand and said calmly, let's go back to the mainland first. Tang San and the others must have returned to the mainland. We'll talk about it when the time comes. As for the Sea God's Island, my strength is now less than 10%. We have no chance of winning if we fight head-on, so there's no need to waste our strength. Return to the headquarters of the Alliance and quickly absorb the remaining stubborn forces of the 2 empires into the Alliance. Qian Rinshua nodded slightly, but her heart was filled with emotions. He vaguely guessed the final situation, but at this time it was meaningless to say it out loud. A single slip would cause everlasting sorrow. If a person died, there would be nothing left. Qian Rinshua looked at Qian Rinshua's figure and sighed softly. Xiao Shui was not young anymore. She had fallen in love. Who knew how much she would hate her mother now? Who knew how long she would be sad? Turning around, Qian Rinshua glanced at the Sea God's Island and left first. Bibidon looked into the distance. After a long time, she suddenly turned around. Tears flowed out of the corners of her eyes, like drops of crystal, sinking into the boundless sea. P.S. There are 5 more updates in the evening. Please count the votes. This chapter ends. Chapter 841. Sea God Mountain. Possessi looked into the distance, lost in thought. After a long time, she let out a long sigh. She was looking at the direction where Wang Feng was hit by Bibidon's Rakshasa ray. Possessi had been paying attention to the battle since Tang San left the ring-shaped sea on the great white demon soul shark. After all, this was related to the safety of the Sea God's Island. If Wang Feng could not stop Bibidon, Tang San and the others would be in danger. Even the Sea God's Mountain was extremely dangerous. Possessi did not know Bibidon's character. Who knew if she would really go crazy and destroy the Sea God's Mountain? In truth, towards the end, Bai Saishi was rather pleased. From the looks of it, Wang Feng's strength was enough to resist Bibidong. He could even defeat her? Seeing this, Poseidon could be said to have eaten a pill of reassurance. However, the situation was completely out of Possessi's expectation. How could this be? Possessi sighed in her heart. That child was so talented. Even if he did not inherit the godhood, it would be a miracle to see how far he could go in the future. But she did not expect that he would be gone just like that. Possessi had a vague idea of the reason when she recalled the situation just now. It was very likely that the martial soul of the axe was caused by some unstable factors. It was a pity that Bibi Dong didn't stop at the last moment. Fortunately, those children left early. If they saw this scene, I don't know how sad they would be. Possessi felt that she was a little selfish. She did not want to tell them about this. deep sea. Several great white demon soul sharks carried Tang San and the others away from the sea god's island. Everyone was covered in a thin layer of bubbles to resist the water pressure around them. The 9 of them were silent. The atmosphere was a little tense. Because they were in the deep sea, they could not see the scene on the surface. They did not know what had happened. The great white demon soul sharks were very fast. Without the harassment of the sea spirit beasts, it would not take them long to reach the coastal city. Sensing the stifling atmosphere, Bai Qinxiang, who was beside Ma Hongjun, spoke softly. "So he's the Wang Feng you've been talking about. He must have been secretly helping us these past 2 years, right?" As soon as he said those words, the oppressive atmosphere eased a little. "It feels so magical," Xin Lingqi said in a low voice. "This monster captain, the #1 enemy of the Martial Spirit Palace, has unknowingly become the white popediff of the Martial Spirit Palace? My God, even those fantastic stories wouldn't dare to write something like this." Indeed, no one dared to write that. But that was the reality. It also happened to them. I think his experience in the Martial Spirit Palace should be very interesting. Bai Qinxiang pulled Ma Hongjuan's arm. "Fatty, who is your captain after all? I really want to know what happened to him in the Martial Spirit Palace." Her soft words made Ma Hongjuan's tense heart relax a little. This was the good thing about girls. They could soothe a man's tense heart. "I want to know too, but I don't have the chance now." Ma Hongjun forced a smile and said, "But if you want to know the captain's story, I can tell you." Bai Qinxiang nodded and snuggled in Ma Hongjuan's arms. She was very obedient now. "Now that I think about it, it feels so magical." Oscar held Xin Lingqi's hand. "The person we met at the Shrek Academy must be the captain himself, right? At that time, that white-clothed Pope acted so well that none of us noticed any flaws. So it turned out that Captain was acting as himself, and he was acting as himself. I reckon that when the Pope asked him to pretend to be Wang Feng and infiltrate our Shrek Academy, Captain was also a little confused." Ning Rongrong snorted softly when she heard this, but she was a little happy in her heart. After all, those words of love that she said back then were said to him and not to anyone else. "Now that you mention it, when we were in the Great Star Do Forest, Wang Feng suddenly appeared and defeated the netherworld Douluo of the Martial Spirit Palace." Dai Mubai also recalled and said, "I was wondering how it could be so coincidental. He just happened to appear. If he was the white popediff, he could have arrived in time." Now that everyone recalled the bits and pieces of the past few years, the more they thought about it, the more shocked they were. Some of the key points could be said to be extremely wonderful. They didn't know how many crises were resolved at the critical moment. But being a spy in the Martial Spirit Palace was like stepping on a tightrope with a bottomless abyss below. The slightest carelessness would devour all of them. But Wang Feng was able to do this, which was a real miracle. How did Brother Feng make the Bibidon trust him so much? This was the most incredible thing for Tang San. What kind of person was the Pope? Did he want to gain her trust? Tang San thought it was too amazing. If he wanted to know the answer to these questions, he would have to ask Wang Feng himself. Captain has been lurking in the Martial Spirit Palace for so long, the Pope should be furious, right? Ma Hongjun pinched his chin. "If it were me, I would definitely be furious. However, when we were pulled into that damned place, did Captain reach an agreement with the Pope? Then they didn't reach an agreement, so they fought? In the end, the Bibidon said that he, Wang Feng, was nothing. Did he want to defeat her? What choice did he have? I guess the Bibidon took a fancy to Captain and wanted to keep him." Tang San pondered. Captain was able to enter the Martial Spirit Palace, so he obviously did a lot of things. Otherwise, it would be impossible to gain the Bibidon's trust. That Bibidon is an ambitious person with great talent and bold vision. I think he still wanted to retain and recruit Brother Feng, but I guess the negotiation fell through. So, Fatty, the Bibidon can become the Pope and control the Martial Spirit Palace for so many years. It's not that simple. He didn't explode in anger like you think. Ma Hongjun scratched his head. After they talked for a while, the suppressed anger reduced a lot. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing, who had been silent, suddenly let out a painful cry. She suddenly clutched her chest and curled up into a ball. In an instant, everyone was shocked. Zhuqing, what's wrong with you? Ning Rongrong, who was next to Zhu Zhuqing, hurriedly asked. Several great white sharks with demon souls also approached. I don't know. Zhu Zhuqing's forehead was full of sweat, and she just murmured, It's just that my heart hurts so much. Ding. Ding. Congratulations to the host for punching in the Sea God's Island and not dying. Reward obtained, Million-Year Soul Ring. The Soul Ring will appear in the Douluo world in the form of a soul beast. Reward obtained, the first half of the secret word Swordsman. External reward obtained. The age of all soul rings increased by 40,000 years. Next punching location. The final battle of the Martial Spirit Empire. There are additional rewards. Hope the host can survive. You can start the second chapter, Becoming a God. Chapter 842. Sea God's Second Trial, Guarding the Sea God's Island, perfectly passed. All soul ring years increased by 10,000 years. The heir of the sea god, Tang San, did not die, obtained a 10,000-year increase. Soul power level increased by 1 level, reached the upper limit, stored in the body. In the deep sea, a weak light emitted a soft light. Small fish of strange shapes surrounded the center of this light, like moths attracted by a candle flame, circling around the center of this light. After an unknown period of time, suddenly this light trembled slightly. A tremor came from the water. The surrounding small fishes were like startled birds in the forest, scattering in all directions. The light gradually weakened and finally converged into a fist-sized light, but did not disappear. Only then did it reveal that this was actually a human body, and the position of the light was on the chest. The strange thing was that there was a palm-sized hole in the chest, and the left side of the chest seemed to be gone. What was even stranger was that the ray of light was right in the middle of the cave. In the center of the light was a tear-like crystal. Although the heart was gone, this person was really Wang Feng, and the crystal was naturally the meteoric tear. At this moment, the meteoric tear emitted a faint light, and the light seemed to form threads, forming a dense light net, connecting the flesh and blood around the heart. The heart was gone, and only the meteoric tear remained at this moment. A purplish-black aura lingered on the outside of the light, as if it was corroding and devouring this body. Suddenly, Wang Feng woke up in endless pain. Although he woke up, his eyes did not open, but his consciousness. With consciousness, he naturally had feelings. His whole body seemed to have been scraped by countless blades. That kind of extreme pain made Wang Feng want to curse at this moment. I'm dead. In Wang Feng's sea of consciousness, a pool of spiritual power was incomparably calm. He knew that this was the spiritual power he broke through in the battle just now. From the vast sea, it became this pool of water. However, it looked extremely viscous, like slurry or jelly. This meant that his spiritual power had been compressed to a limit. If it continued to be compressed, all of his spiritual power would slowly condense. In the end, it would form a real solid. Wang Feng did not know what a solid spiritual power meant. Wang Feng only knew that he was in a very bad situation. His heart had really been pierced through. Blood was everywhere, and the bones in his chest were all shattered. One could imagine how powerful a demigod was. The purple-black beam was extremely corrosive. It corroded Wang Feng's vitality and body. If Wang Feng's dustless glass body had not been cleansed by the chaotic divine light, he would have disappeared completely in that instant. He couldn't even protect the meteor stream. Thinking about it carefully, Wang Feng also felt somewhat lucky. Why did these people like to attack the heart? Could it be that he knew that I had the meteoric tear in my heart and couldn't be killed? If you hit my head, I might be dead. But even if he didn't die, because his heart was gone, the meteoric tear could only act as a drive. This was because the meteoric tear had directly fused into his heart. The heart became the carrier of the meteoric tear. Without a carrier, the effect of the meteoric tear would be greatly reduced. However, it was not difficult for Wang Feng to reconstruct his heart. All he had to do was use the golden lotus. In addition, his body had a strong self-healing ability. Now that he was able to wake up, it was all because of the flowing energy of the meteoric tear. The empty heart and the surrounding flesh were barely connected. This should be less than 1,000 meters deep in the sea. The pressure was not strong for Wang Feng. Wang Feng could only pray that there were no strong sea spirit beasts around. His body was extremely empty now. One had to know that when he was hit by the Rakshasa deathlight, he was already in a very weak state. He had lost more than half of his blood essence. GG. But in the end, the fatal blow from the Bibidon still made Wang Feng feel helpless. Because it was the first time that the Pangu Axe's blood explosion attack appeared. Maybe it was related to his strength, so the Pangu Axe absorbed his blood essence crazily. Or it could be said that his blood essence was too strong now. That was why he was qualified to be absorbed by the Pangu Axe. Although he used the Pangu Axe in the past, he did not let the Pangu Axe absorb his blood. Wang Feng guessed that this might be because after being cleansed by the chaotic divine light, his potential had been unlocked. These factors caused the Pangu Axe to absorb his blood, which led to the previous situation. The Pangu Axe martial soul was also powerful. It did not absorb the blood of trash. He almost sucked himself dry with just one breath. At that time, he was unable to control himself. It must have made the Bibidon think that he wanted to kill her at all costs. Then it made her angrier and more desperate. That was why she thought of perishing together with him. Because when Wang Feng was blown away, he also saw the dull expression of the Bibidon. Obviously, she did not know about his situation. How to say? Wang Feng did not know what to say. He could only say everything was destined. Destined my ass. In that situation, he still took a fatal blow from the Bibidon. That was not an ordinary attack. It was an attack full of the Bibidon's anger and determination. Although it was not a powerful attack in the Rakshasa god's inheritance, it was still a divine skill. Under such emotions, the power was even stronger than the Rakshasa demon's sickle. Under that kind of attack, he was in an extremely weak state. Logically speaking, it was the meteoric tear. If it was something else, he would definitely die. But even with the meteoric tear, Wang Feng felt that his body was extremely weak at this moment. Blood. Too much blood had been absorbed by the Pangu Axe. A normal person would die after losing 1/3 of his blood. It was not only 1/3 of his blood. He was afraid that 90% of his blood had been absorbed by the Pangu Axe. He relied on his strong body to survive. Given a certain amount of time, Wang Feng could still recover. But now, after suffering that blow, Wang Feng felt that his body was weak at this moment. He only relied on the meteoric tear to hang on. Wait, did I forget something? Just now, I seem to remember something in my mind? Wang Feng was shocked in his sea of consciousness. Did I punch the card? He suddenly recalled that the sound of punching the card just now slowly reverberated in Wang Feng's mind. 1,000,000-year soul ring. Wait. The system is quite considerate. Why didn't you give it to me directly? After perceiving the content of the punch card, Wang Fengxin heaved a sigh of relief. 1,000,000-year soul ring, this meant that his level 90 was guaranteed. However, the system did not give it to him. It was probably considering his current situation. It was impossible to absorb it. Chapter 843. Not to mention a 1,000,000-year soul ring, Even a 10,000-year soul ring could fill up Wang Feng's current fragile state by 30%. He would probably die before he could finish absorbing the energy. A million-year soul ring, this meant that it was on the same level as the deep-sea demon whale. However, it was presented in the form of a soul beast. Wang Feng pondered, does the system mean that I have to kill it myself? To find a million-year soul beast that belongs to me? Although it wasn't as good as directly obtaining it before, it was useless for Wang Feng to obtain it now. Wang Feng estimated that even if it was a god-bestowed soul ring, it wouldn't allow him to absorb a million-year soul ring. It was very simple, because a god-bestowed soul ring was a power bestowed by the sea god, and 100-year soul ring meant that the soul beast became a god. Could the sea god create a god out of thin air for him to absorb? It was estimated that Wang Feng absorbed a god-bestowed soul ring for 500,000 years, which made the sea god bleed a lot. Like the one Tang San absorbed before, it was at most 100,000 years, which was nothing to the sea god. Although the possessee didn't say it, there was definitely a limit to the age of this god-bestowed soul ring. But after level 90, Wang Feng estimated that it would be the end. The godhood chapter mentioned by the system was probably to let him embark on the road to godhood. Wang Feng knew that it was far from easy for him to become a god, no matter which soul ring it was. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was surpassing God. Or he could create his own divine position. There should be no divine position for him to inherit in the Douluo divine world. To put it bluntly, Wang Feng didn't want it. It was better to create it himself. But was it so easy to create it? Not easy. Wang Feng didn't think so much. The last checkpoint should be the final chapter of the Douluo world. Wang Feng estimated that he would be able to reach rank 90, find that million-year soul beast, kill it and absorb it. That would be about it. As for the rest, let's see what the system said. Godhood chapter, these 3 words were enough to explain everything. However, what made Wang Feng most gratified was that the system probably thought that the reward given was not good enough. After all, he still had to kill the million-year soul beast himself. So it gave another reward. Esoteric word. This thing could be said to be what Wang Feng needed the most now. Why? People in the Douluo world didn't know this thing. But Wang Feng knew. This was one of the heaven-shrouding 9 secrets. This secret technique was a supreme healing technique, a supreme recovery divine technique. It was said that a single drop of blood could restore one to the most perfect state. It could be said to be an undying and indestructible secret technique. With Wang Feng's current injuries, even the meteoric tear would not be able to save him in a short time, because of the severe loss of blood. His blood was no ordinary blood. It was extremely pure blood that contained boundless energy. Otherwise, it would not have been absorbed by the Pangu axe and unleashed such powerful energy. The meteoric tear could only protect his heart from dying. If he wanted to recover, it would take a long time. During this period of time, Wang Feng found it very difficult to move. If a slightly stronger soul beast appeared in this sea, he would be able to laugh and type GG. However, with this secret technique, if Wang Feng could comprehend it on his own, he didn't need to comprehend too much. Even if he only comprehended a part of it, he didn't need to fully recover with a single drop of blood. He only needed to speed up his recovery. Due to the lack of blood, Wang Feng's perception of his body was greatly reduced. Only the hole in his heart had a warm current, giving Wang Feng a sense of touch. The esoteric word began to appear in Wang Feng's sea of consciousness. What appeared in Wang Feng's sea of consciousness was a special page of a golden and blood-red scripture. The scripture seemed to be made of a special material. It was similar to the ancient wood that appeared when the esoteric word appeared. It was also made of a special material. When Wang Feng controlled the viscous spirit to enter this ancient and mysterious page of the scripture, his mind exploded with a bang. His spiritual power seemed to be pulled into an empty world. There were only lines of burning inscriptions that allowed Wang Feng's spiritual power to merge into them like chains. Esoteric word, the secret of longevity. His spiritual power comprehended the contents of this page of scripture. Following that, this page of scripture began to burn. When the esoteric word was cultivated to the extreme, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that one could live forever. If it was in the past, Wang Feng would not have been able to comprehend this esoteric word. When he was trying to comprehend the esoteric word, he had to travel around the continent for half a year to observe the changes in the world and comprehend the state of mind. Only then was he able to comprehend half of the esoteric word. But the current Wang Feng was far from the past. He could even comprehend the esoteric word, and had been cleansed by the chaotic divine light. His spiritual power and soul had reached a whole new level. It was only half a step to the esoteric word. It wasn't difficult to comprehend it. After an unknown period of time, the light around Wang Feng's body began to be enshrouded with extraordinary mysteries. Rays of bright light began to emit from Wang Feng's remaining blood. Because of the loss of blood, Wang Feng's body looked like a bag of bones. The originally crystal-clear jade bones and skin had lost their luster. Only the area around the meteoric tear and his brain had traces of blood flowing. The rest of his body was like an ancient bone. But at this time, a bright light began to bloom from Wang Feng's blood. That was the aura of life. It was as if the aura of life was endlessly growing. It was weak. At this moment, Wang Feng had already landed in a sea of mud. There were all kinds of seaweed around him. In this aura of life, the life around him seemed to have come alive. The moment this aura of life appeared, Wang Feng recovered a little of his soul power. His body also seemed to have some strength. He had already comprehended part of the esoteric word. Shadowmist. Without hesitation, although he didn't know how many days had passed, Wang Feng immediately used his Shadowmist soul skill to conceal his aura. He didn't want to be discovered and eaten by other soul beasts when he was so weak. If that happened, the losses would outweigh the gains. Not long after Wang Feng used his Shadowmist soul skill, a silhouette flitted across the sky. On the surface of the sea, whoosh, a figure rushed out from the sea. Qian Rinshue's wings flashed. A layer of faint golden light enveloped his body. He used his immense spiritual power to sense his surroundings. Impossible, he's around here. It's been 3 days. How can I not sense any aura at all? Qian Rinshue looked around. His face was extremely pale. How could he die like this? I don't believe. How big was the sea? Wang Feng was instantly sent flying a few thousand meters away. He fell into the sea and drifted for an unknown distance. Although Qian Rinshue caught up in time, his spiritual power couldn't sense the entire sea. His spiritual power wasn't strong enough to do so. You're so strong, how could you die like this? Qian Rinshue gritted his teeth. She didn't just search in midair. She also sank to the bottom of the sea. But the deeper the sea, the smaller the range of her senses. The sea was boundless. How could she sense everything? Chapter 844. Qian Rinshue recalled the terrifying light that Bibidan had unleashed, and felt a little hopeless. She knew that the light contained Bibidan's fury. Even she might not have been able to withstand it. What about Wang Feng, who was extremely weak? Or was he struck in the heart and shattered? Even if it was her, she wouldn't be able to survive. In this world, there was no one who could survive under that kind of situation. Qian Rinshue became even more dazed as she thought about it. At this moment, several figures flew over from afar. They were the 2 Douluo Guiju and the thorny pufferfish Dalu. Young master, the chrysanthemum Douluo looked at Qian Rinshue carefully. Qian Rinshue was like a volcano that was about to erupt. He did not dare to provoke him. Did Bibidan send you? Qian Rinshue looked at them coldly. He wants me to go back? If they were in the Pope's palace, It would be disrespectful to call Bibidon by his name. However, the two Douluo acted as if they did not hear him. That's not it, the thorny pufferfish Douluo replied softly. The Pope wants the three of us to accompany you to find Lord Popediff. The thorny pufferfish Douluo paused. Although Wang Feng's identity had been exposed, they still addressed him as Lord Popediff. Perhaps it had become a habit and a form of respect. Qian Rinxue laughed coldly and remained silent. Find him, young master. Until you don't want to, the thorny pufferfish Douluo continued. In the sea, he was the only titled Douluo in the martial spirit hall who could fight in the sea. He was also very agile in the sea. Qian Rinxue was even angrier when he heard this. Recruit him? I think you just think that he has a chance to be used, right? Qian Rinxue said sarcastically. Now that he's gone, it's meaningless for you to come? That's true. Even I was sent to the Heaven Do Palace to be a spy. What emotions could she possibly have? Qian Rinxue sneered in his heart. Hatred spread in his heart, but he only felt extremely tired. There's no need to look for it. Qian Rinxue glanced at the three of them and said calmly, We've searched everywhere. The three of them fell silent. His Holiness the Pope did not have much hope when he sent them here. No one knew better than His Holiness the power of that attack, because the closest person to Popediff at that time was the Pope. His Holiness the Pope has returned to the Alliance's headquarters. The Douluo continued, also, get the High Priest to take the Holy Maiden back to the coastal cities and set up a defensive line there. If Tang San and the others try to escape from the Sea God's Island, get the Holy Maiden to send people to capture them. His Highness the Pope is certain that Tang San and his men must have sneaked out of the Sea God's Island a few days ago during the battle. Later, the three of us and the young master will need to go and negotiate with the Holy Maiden. If we discover her, we will immediately pursue her. We must capture Tang San. Hearing this, Qian Rinxue was silent for a moment. What a good Bibidon. She can still think of this at such a time. Does she not feel sad at all? Qian Rinxue felt that it was unbelievable. Wang Wu had helped her so much. Now, the Martial Spirit Alliance was said to be the master of the continent and was supported by countless soul masters. This situation could be said to be indirectly caused by Wang Wu. It was also the reason why she could step into the demigod realm so quickly, but she seemed to be silent when people died. She even had the mood to calculate other things. Qian Rinxue felt that she could not be such a person. She hated this kind of woman. Thinking of this, Qian Rinxue felt a surge of anger in her heart. I want to become a god. Wang Feng. Qian Rinxue looked at the endless distance, her eyes burning with anger and a trace of madness. Above the sea, thousands of meters away from Oceanic City, great white demon soul sharks had already jumped out of the sea and floated on the surface. Zhu Qing, are you okay? It had been a few days since they left the Sea God's Island. With the great white demon soul sharks carrying them, their speed could be said to be extremely fast. It had taken him almost a month to find the Sea God's Island. But now, in just a few days, they were very close to the continent. Ning Rongrong asked Zhu Zhuqing, while riding on the great white demon soul sharks. Not long after they left that day, Zhu Zhuqing's heart was in a state of pain and twitching. Even she did not know the reason. It was very strange. But these few days it was much better. I'm okay. Zhu Zhuqing touched her chest, but a trace of deep worry flashed in the depths of her eyes. Vaguely, she had an ominous premonition. All this time, the position in her heart had been connected to Wang Feng in some mysterious way. Although it was very faint, but just as she was pressing on the sky, the mysterious crystal in her heart that looked like a teardrop seemed to be flying out, which caused the intense pain. But after that day, the pain slowly decreased, and it only recovered in the past 2 days. But what made Zhu Zhuqing uneasy was that the feeling between them had become fainter. Even today it had disappeared. Zhu Zhuqing did not know what this meant, but it was definitely not good. Wang Feng was definitely in danger. She did not know what kind of treasure this special teardrop crystal he gave her was, but it would not have such a strange reaction. When they were returning halfway, Zhu Zhuqing even wanted to return to the Sea God's Island to check on the situation. But in her heart, she kept telling herself that Wang Feng would be fine. Last time, he was able to turn the situation into a safe place, and in the end, he became even stronger. It was the same now. If she went, it would be more troublesome. If the martial spirit palace found her, it would be even more troublesome. Captain has already escaped from the Sea God's Island, right? Is he waiting for us on the continent? Ma Hongjun chuckled. That's for sure. Oscar agreed. When I used the mirror intestine to duplicate Captain's martial spirit, I could barely duplicate the first 4 forms. I still couldn't bear it, and I couldn't even duplicate his spear. But Captain's 4th soul skill is a super long-distance teleportation soul skill. It can be said to be the best soul skill for escaping. I reckon that even a golden body type soul skill would not be as good as this. He can leave the battlefield in an instant. Oscar's words reassured everyone once again. At that time, I could only use part of my soul skill. With Captain's strength, teleporting over 10,000 meters is not impossible. Oscar continued. Everyone nodded. Brother Feng, as long as Bibidan's strength is depleted, the martial spirit palace will not dare to attack the Sea God's Island. Tang San's face eased a little. We don't have to worry about this. Thousand Dao Flo and Bibidan have both been depleted. Qian Renxue is no match for senior possessee on the Sea God's Mountain. Once they enter the Sea God's Island, the martial spirit palace's soul masters won't be able to take advantage. Chapter 845. What Tang San said was also the reason why Bibidan retreated. At this moment, Little White, who was under Tang San's feet, suddenly said, Master, there seem to be many soul masters searching the nearby sea area. The clansmen who are scouting ahead have reported back to us. We might have been discovered. Hearing this, Tang San was stunned. Soul masters? What soul masters? They were stunned. It should be. Little White hesitated for a moment. They are from the martial spirit palace. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Their speed was extremely fast. After all, they were the great white demon shark. Even if the people from the martial spirit palace knew that they had escaped, they couldn't have returned from the Sea God's Island so quickly and set up a defense line in the coastal sea area. Even if they sent a titled Douluo to return from the Sea God's Island in advance, they couldn't have been faster than them. Either they had set up a defense line in advance, or Bibidan had guessed that they had escaped and returned to the coastal city before them. Send the 1,000 Dao school to quickly return to the coastal city and set up a defense line. The 1,000 Dao school was known as the King of the Sky. In terms of strength and speed, there might be 5 people in the sky who could compete with him, including the great white demon shark. Thinking of this, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. This Bibidan is too ruthless. He actually calculated to this extent. Ma Hongjun was instantly furious. But looking at it from another angle, Tang San pondered. It's very likely that Brother Feng has already won, which caused Bibidan to not attack the Sea God's Island and return to the mainland in advance. Otherwise, they should be attacking the Sea God's Island now. Everyone nodded slightly. It made sense. Then what should we do now? If the 1,000 Dao school is really here, we can't beat them. Dai Mubai looked at the looming vast sea city in the distance. He could vaguely see many ships on the sea. In midair, there were teams of soul masters flying in the sky, patrolling the sea. Even if he couldn't see clearly, Dai Mubai could guess that they were from the martial spirit palace. Don't worry, Tang San thought. We can go ashore at another place. Even if we are discovered, he might not be here. With the identity of the 1,000 Dao stream, he might not necessarily be in the city. The coastline is so long. If it really doesn't work, we don't have to disembark at Vast Sea City. We can just change the coastline. If there are soul masters chasing after us, they won't be our match. By the time the 1,000 Dao flow finds out, we will already be ashore. Everyone get ready. Little Ao, Ling Chi, make more mushrooms and white beer later. It should be useful later. Oscar and Shun Ling Chi nodded. The closer they got to the shore, the shallower the seabed became. For the great white demon soul shark, it was not suitable for fighting. Even if he were to sink to the bottom of the ocean, he would only be several dozen meters deep. Even with the vast sea cosmic shroud, it would still be very difficult for him to escape detection. Because even if he couldn't sense it, he could also see it. It wouldn't be difficult for a high-grade soul master to see through several dozen meters of the ocean floor. Not good, there's a bunch of soul cultivators coming our way. Xiaobai, you guys go back first. You guys are too big. If a titled Douluo from the Martial Soul Hall comes, we'll be in even more trouble. Tang San said in a deep voice, eat the mushroom intestines and rush over. Xiaobai nodded. The great white demon soul shark was 10 to 20 meters long in the east continent. It was simply a huge monster in the sea. It was too easy to see it. The group flew up one after another. In front of them there was a group of people. Tang San was the strongest. He immediately sensed a very familiar aura. It seems to be an acquaintance, very far away. Hulaina flew in midair expressionlessly. Behind her, there was a group of soul masters from the Martial Soul Hall. Their auras were extremely powerful, and their strength was above rank 60. There were a total of 50 people. There were more than 10 soul Douluo who were above rank 80. Halfway through, Hulaina suddenly said, all of you can go back. I'll go alone. Hearing this, many soul masters behind her were stunned. One of them, a man in full armor, said respectfully, Your Highness, there's news that Tang San and the others have been found. It's too dangerous for you to go alone. Let's go together. Hulaina waved her hand impatiently. I've been on the Sea God's Island for more than 2 years. How can I not be familiar with Tang San and the others? They must have found a mistake. I think it should be the ship of the Martial Soul Hall led by my brother and the others. They have returned from the Sea God's Island. I'll go alone. But, no buts. Don't my orders carry out? Besides, Tang San is such a smart person. How can he expose his traces? It's just to confuse you. Maybe he's in another location now. Hurry up and go to the coastal area. After Hulaina finished speaking, she rushed out first. Don't follow me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Hearing this, the 50 soul masters behind her looked at each other and quickly returned. Before His Majesty the Pope went out to sea, he sent the Saintess to guard the island again in case His Majesty the Pope failed to catch Tang San and the others on the Sea God's Island and let them escape. They would wait here for them to return to the mainland and capture them in one fell swoop. A day ago, the High Priest, Dalu, returned one step ahead and gave an order. He asked them to quickly strengthen the defense and listen to the Saintess' order to capture Tang San, who escaped from the Sea God's Island. However, since Her Majesty the Saintess had given the order, they naturally could not disobey. Besides, what the Saintess said was somewhat reasonable. The group quickly returned. Not long after they left, Hulaina's body trembled and she suddenly burst into tears. She returned with Dalu. Because Bibidon and Dalu, as the two top high-level figures, would not do such a thing in the coastal area. Only the Saintess could be responsible for it. She was well aware of what had happened that day. It was just that she was on the ship and did not watch the battle closely. But she also knew the specific situation. At that time, when she saw Wang Wu's heart being pierced by Bibidon, her heart was almost broken and she almost fainted. The key was that she could not show it. She was not Qianrenxue who could expose her emotions so willfully. She even scolded the Pope in front of him. If she dared to do so, Bibidon would slap her backhand. She might even be crippled. That kind of painful emotion could only be hidden in the bottom of her heart. It only burst out at this moment when she was alone. How could he die? Tears fell from Hulaina's cheeks like a broken string. After a while, Hulaina reluctantly wiped away her tears and flew forward. In just a moment she saw Tang San and the others. Tang San and the others also saw Hulaina. For a moment, they were stunned and felt extreme danger in their hearts. Even the saintess of the martial spirit palace was here. Then, Hulaina looked at Tang San and the others and said expressionlessly, "Don't worry, it's only me. I won't call for others. The coastline here is all blocked. If you want to enter the mainland, there is only one place. I'll take you there. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to go ashore. Because several titled Douluo have returned from the sea god's island." Hearing this, the 9 people were all stunned. P.S. End of Chapter 10. Please count votes. Chapter 846. The 9 people looked at Hulaina and didn't know what to say for a while. What's going on? Is she pretending? Or has the Holy Lady of the Martial Spirit Palace been replaced? Tang San was also a little confused. Hulaina was the Holy Lady of the Martial Spirit Palace and Bibidon's disciple. Why would she help them? There were a lot of defensive lines set up by the Martial Spirit Palace here. There was no need to deliberately pretend to lure them. And it was obvious that they had been discovered. She could just come and catch them directly, and then it would definitely attract the attention of more soul masters. It would be difficult for them not to alarm the whole defensive line. At this moment, Tang San sensed that the soul masters behind Hulaina seemed to have dispersed. This caused even Tang San to be confused, let alone the others. "You're kind enough to help us?" Ning Rongrong looked at Hulaina vigilantly. Her delicate face was so charming that men couldn't help but be impulsive. Now her eyes were still red and seductive. She remembered. This Holy Lady of the Martial Spirit Palace was very close to Pope Diff Wang Wu. Now that Wang Feng was Wang Wu, didn't that mean Hulaina? Thinking of this, Ning Rongrong was even more vigilant in her eyes. She held Zhu Zhuqing's arm tightly. "Help you?" Hulaina sneered. "I'm not related to you. Why would I help you?" "Forget it, I've already told you. Soon, Qian Rinxue will bring at least 3 titled Douluo to inspect the situation. If you think you can escape from their pursuit, then do as you please." The defensive line of the Martial Spirit Palace was set up by Bibidon long ago. Naturally, it would be difficult to sneak through without being noticed. Hearing this, the 9 people frowned, but they vaguely thought of something. "Did Wang Feng ask you to do this?" At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing looked at Hulaina and suddenly asked. Tang San also stared at Hulaina. He also thought of this possibility. But if so, Brother Feng was too strong, right? He even instigated the Holy Lady of the Martial Spirit Palace to defect? "I don't know any Wang Feng," Hulaina said expressionlessly. "I only know Pope Diff Wang Wu. That's all I have to say. It's up to you whether you want to follow me or not. I'm only responsible for leading the way." Then, Hulaina took out several sets of clothes that soul masters of the Martial Spirit Palace wore. "Here are the clothes." He turned around and flew in another direction. However, Hulaina's denial made everyone understand a little more. It must be related to Wang Feng. "Change your clothes, conceal your aura, and follow them," Tang San said in a deep voice. The others nodded in agreement. He changed into the clothes of a soul master of the Martial Spirit Palace. Then, Tang San took out the vast sea cosmic shroud and covered everyone's aura. As he followed Hulaina, he saw her dismissing the patrolling soul cultivators from afar. Sure enough, it was easier to get things done when there were people on the inside. In just a moment, Tang San and the others followed Hulaina through the path that extended to the coast. Finally, Hulaina brought the 3 of them to a shore. Next, from here, it will take about 15 days to reach Heavendo City. With your speed, you can get there in a few days. Hulaina stood on the shore and continued, Heavendo City is the place where the Alliance has the weakest control. If you go to other places, you will definitely be discovered. Alliance? What the hell is the Alliance? The 9 of them were stunned. They knew that great changes must have happened in less than 3 years, but it was not good to ask too much at this time. When they returned to Heavendo City, they would naturally know the situation. Then the 9 of us will thank you here. Tang San cupped his fists at Hulaina. Although I don't know why you helped us, we will remember this kindness in our hearts. The others nodded in agreement. Without Hulaina, they would not have been able to pass through the defense line so easily. Even if they passed through, they would probably face unknown pursuit. If that Qian Rinxue really chased them, none of them would be able to escape. Hulaina was silent. You guys go, before anyone notices. Hulaina looked at them and was about to turn around and leave. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing suddenly asked, Wang Feng. Wang Wu, how is he now? Hulaina was slightly taken aback, and a smile appeared on her face. However, when they saw this smile, their hearts skipped a beat. Something happened? A breath of air began to choke in the hearts of the group. Wang Wu should have left Sea God's Island, right? Ning Rongrong's tone became cautious, as if she was afraid of knowing the truth, but also very eager to know. Yes, he left. Hulaina nodded and said expressionlessly. Hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. I knew it. Even the Bibidon can't stop Captain. Ma Hongjun laughed out loud. What a joke. How can he stop that kind of teleportation soul skill? Oscar chuckled. I guess that Bibidon is really angry this time. He couldn't persuade him to stay, and Captain left in the end. Is there any place in this world that Wang Feng can't go? Dai Mubai rubbed his chin. He can come and go as if there's no one around. Everyone laughed. Ning Rongrong also revealed a smile on her face. She could finally let go of the worries she had for the past few days. Zhu Zhuqing pursed her lips. Is he really gone? At this moment, Hulaina muttered, he left. He has left this world forever. You guys, take care of yourselves. After saying this, Hulaina suddenly sobbed and flew into the distance. A teardrop floated over and landed on Ning Rongrong's dazed face. That cold feeling seemed to have spread through her cheeks and spread to her entire body. At the bottom of the endless sea, dazzling light continued to flash from Wang Feng's body. Strands of transparent blood flowed through Wang Feng's body, and every time it flowed, it would become a little stronger. Finally, it gathered at the empty spot and wrapped around the meteoric tear like a blood flower, beating like a heart. Following this, the strands of blood grew stronger again. Abundant energy flowed out from the meteoric tear, and under the special circulation method of the blood gradually became purer and more dazzling. The bright blood exuded a ruby-like luster. Every time the lustrous blood flowed through Wang Feng's skinny body, it would spring up like a spring. It was as if the spring rain had poured down on the dry land, bringing with it vigorous vitality. Quickly, every bone in Wang Feng's body became radiant, and his skin started to emit a crystal-like glow. Wang Feng closed his eyes and comprehended the esoteric word. He had to admit that the esoteric word was very good. After comprehending a little and cultivating, Wang Feng felt that his recovery speed had increased by more than one level. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.